Greetings, brothers. How you guys doing? Please give me a shout out in the chat if you can hear me okay. We are using a different microphone today, so I'd appreciate that if you can just let me know if everything is good. Cool. Exciting day today, I guess. 5 lists to look over, and then also we need to talk a little bit about maybe tomorrow, in that we are going live for the first time in about 3 months to play against both Death Guard and Custodes. So, I have all the lists. I have shared them in the Facebook groups and also the Discord. Actually, maybe I've not shared them yet on Facebook. I've definitely shared them on Discord. We'll share them on Facebook later tonight. And you can see the 3 lists. So they've all been finalised, the lists for tomorrow. And it'll be basically one Blood Angels versus Custodes, Blood Angels versus Death Guard, and then Death Guard versus Custodes. And whoever, I guess, gets the most victory points against all 3 battles will end out essentially being the victor and come out on top. So, cool. So, thanks for tuning in, guys. It's always nice to see so many people. I logged on at like 3:30 today to get ready, and I already saw people in the chat. So, I think maybe the time zone has changed. I mean, I haven't changed the time zone, but maybe with like daylight savings time in some other places, this might be an hour earlier or an hour later for some people. So, sorry if I didn't make that clear. I don't actually know when the UK changes its time zone, but I'm sure if it's changed in other countries, I guess it's probably going to change in the UK. It usually changes around Easter, which is only like 2 or 3 weeks away now. Cool, and I did notice some people asking about the badges in the chat, so I changed it. Hey Ghost, thanks very much for the follow. I changed it so that for 2 months of subscription, I guess you get the blue badge now, and from 3 to 6 months you get the yellow assault helm. So so daylight savings changed in America. I guess that makes things confusing. I will try and let you know when daylight savings is going to change in Britain, but for the moment I don't know. Maybe I just have to Google that. UK daylight savings 2021. Yeah, okay, so it's happening in basically 2 weeks. So I guess in 2 weeks, whatever the normal time will be, it will probably be back to that, but for the next 2 weeks it will be an hour out. So, sorry about that. It's something that honestly I didn't even think about. Cool. So, yeah, nice to see you guys all hanging out in the chat. Adam, Mike, Tom, Highland, Kirk, Echo Mirage, Willis, and I guess I did actually post out the giveaway prizes from last week on Tuesday. This week I think I have the receipt here, because the giveaway was we had one person winning the giveaway, and they were in America, so it cost £16.60 to ship them their box. The other 2, one was in Germany, one was in Ireland, so they were both $5.95. But the giveaway people should hopefully get their boxes of models this week. So I'm really hoping that they'll post up some photos in like the Facebook group or the Discord, and we can see, you know, who won the giveaway models. And yeah, they were all super happy. Like, I talked to them. I think it was Bob got the Storm Speeder. Merch got, I don't remember. Merch and the other guy, Chaos. One of them, I think Chaos got the Eradicators, and I think Merch got the Bladeguard Veterans. So, nice. So yeah, cool. And as always, if there's any questions in the chats, rules questions, I want to see a whole list of Bladeguard. I'm running 5 of them in my army list for tomorrow, so I guess you'll see some of them in action. But if you've got any questions in chat, just let me know, and we'll see if we can't answer them. So yeah, tomorrow we're going to be kicking off probably around 9 AM, maybe 9:30 UK time, and I guess we're going to be live for the best part of 6 or 7 hours. I'm debating on whether or not to show the Death Guard and Custodes match on the channel. I don't know if people would tune out or if people would want to watch that, so I guess you can let me know in this chat if you would like to see all 3 games, or if you just want to see the Blood Angels games. Because I honestly don't know. I mean, Cool. So today's first list, I guess, is Alex Layton, and he is a channel member. And I actually think maybe Adam H has become a channel member since he submitted the list as well. So maybe his list should have been reviewed last week, but it's all good. And if you're not familiar with how we take list submissions, all you need to do is head over to YouTube, hit up the Blood Angels Commander channel, which is this page. You click on the community tab, and basically in the latest one, which I guess was a week ago now, just post your list in here in the comments section. I'll pick it up and I'll add it to the queue. We do have quite a big queue for non-members. I think the members queue is 2 or 3 weeks. The non-members queue is currently like 8 weeks or something, so it's a bit longer. Cool. I'll be watching all day tomorrow. Nice, Northern. It'll be good to see some people in the chats. Some people say Death Guard v Custodes seems interesting. Hopefully the armies aren't too tanky or might be a slap fight. The Death Guard army has a lot of Terminators, like 15 Terminators, but I mean the Terminators are slow. I have Infiltrators in my list, so I should be able to screen them out from deep striking effectively. So I guess we'll see. Yeah, I mean the Death Guard army does seem quite tanky, and we can look at that at the end of the stream today, or maybe later tonight. Can anyone else verify that the FAQ errata for Space Marines has no changes to stratagems or psychic powers? I mean, you could just Google FAQ and you can just, like, it takes like 2 seconds. It's just like if you do FAQ Warhammer community, right? And then you just click on Warhammer 40,000, scroll down to Codex Space Marines. And I guess I don't see anything about stratagems or psychic powers, right? There's no mention of stratagems. There's no mention of psychic. Yeah, but I mean, you can get the ratas just that quickly. It's pretty easy, Rezio. Good afternoon, Matt, and welcome to people who are watching on Twitch as well, because we stream on both platforms, and tomorrow's games will be on both platforms as well. So just choose whichever platform you're comfortable with, and yeah, I mean Twitch has a pretty useful app, but I mean YouTube has a good app these days as well, so it doesn't really matter. Alex says, not sure if you got my comment replay regarding the Warlord switch. Reverse the captain as the Warlord with Angel's Exemplar and gave him Heroic Bearing as a second trait. Alright, so there's a slight tweak to this list for Alex, but we'll keep that in mind, Alex. Give the Chaplain Hero of the Chapter attacks this Wiserator. Nothing else changed. Okay, cool. So Alex, greetings, Commander. I might actually be better writing that down. Reverse the captain as the Warlord with Angel Exemplar and gave him Heroic Bearing as a second trait. Captain. So the Chaplain had Angel's Exemplar before, so you've taken that down here and you've given him Heroic Bearing, and you've lost, I guess, Rights of War on the Chaplain, and he is just the Wiserator. Okay, alright, that makes sense. So greetings, Commander. Here's one of 2 tournament competitive lists I've been tinkering with. I will apologise in advance for the lack of Phobos units, but I think you'll still be impressed nonetheless. The list is designed to maximise the mobility of the jump pack units while offering significant fire support and heavy hitting at close range. My Chaplain will be supporting the individual advance of the Vanguard Vets, with Sanguinary Priest plays a vital role of restoring and reviving my main attack with the Sanguinary Guard blob. My Captain will act as both a hammer and providing the all-important reroll 1s for my Inceptors. Where it lacks in psychic buffing, I think it makes up for sheer volume of attacks. Looking forward to your review. Okay, cool. So we start this list with 2 relics, 2 heroes, and Angel's Exemplar, which I think is exactly what I'm running in my list. So about 5 CP spent on things pre-game. We have our Chaplain, who has the Master of Sanctity, the Wise Orator. He has the Mantra of Strength, the Canticle of Hate. He also has Icon of the Angel, and he's a jump Chaplain with an Infernal Pistol. The Captain has a Chainsword, Jump Pack, Storm Shield, Hero of the Chapter, Imperium Sword, and he has the Teeth of Terror, and now he has Angel's Exemplar, Heroic Bearing, so a good number of attacks. I guess 7 attacks base with that, so boosted up to probably 9 attacks. Maybe with Imperium Sword actually boosted up to 10 attacks when he charges. And then the Sanguinary Priest has, the all-important Chief Apothecary, and the Selfless Healer, which is very, very standard Sanguinary Priest that everybody's running at the moment. Good afternoon, Krychek. Thanks for tuning in. Watch a battle report of Death Guard and Blood Angels recently, and that +1 to wound Blood Angels have really helps overcome the tankiness of the Death Guard. Yeah, I mean, there's a relic that can turn that off, Kirk, so I guess we'll see how effectively. Would you be okay to resize your text window so the left-hand side moves a little? It overlaps the chat. Oh, sorry, yeah, it shouldn't overlap the chat. My bad. I have another, because my stream setup is slightly different from what you guys see, I actually have the chat not as big, so okay, cool, yeah. Anytime there's any problems with the stream, please hit me up, because I'm not infallible, and I definitely make mistakes. And then the other thing to say is in the top right hand corner we'll put the name of the list, so that if anyone is watching, they can, on the replay, they can see which list we're looking at. So I've just put that up there where it says Alex. And then after the stream, I always post all these lists into the chat as well. So if there's any list that you really liked, you can catch up on it in the chat. So we start with troops, and we've got 3 squads of Assault Intercessors. I mean, all Assault Intercessors are fine. I don't think they're the strongest choice. They do have the advantage of the Honour the Chapter rule. So I mean, that is a strong... That does give them an advantage in some situations, but as far as backfield holding, they're kind of worthless. So I guess it is what it is. Good if you end up in close combat, bad if you have to hold backfield objectives. Then elite-wise, the Sanguinary Ancient, who has the Visage of Death. It seems like a strange pick to take Visage of Death with the Ancient. I feel like if you're going to run the Ancient, you usually run Wrath of Baal, but I mean... it's a lot of points for a character that's... He's removing some OBSEC. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a lot of points for that. You could get 4 more Sanguinary Guard and then or maybe just killing them and not worrying about OBSEC. Like, would that be a better choice? But I can understand why you've picked it. We have, what is this, a 9-man Sanguinary Guard, mostly swords, a Power Fist and an Infernal Pistol on a couple. Another 9-man Sanguinary Guard, mostly swords, Power Fist and Infernal on a couple, and then the Vanguard Veterans, and this is a large squad, I guess. 7 with Lightning Claws, or 7 Lightning Claws. This is a single Lightning Claw, right? Power Fist and Storm Shields on a few. So these guys probably are running 1 Lightning Claw, 1 Chainsword, I guess. And the Relic Blade and the Storm Shield on the Sergeant. I'd probably... have you spent your whole 2,000 points? Yeah. I was going to say, if you had 1 more point free, I would probably take an Infernal Pistol on the Sergeant, but I mean, I guess that's fine. And then, finally, we've got 2 3-man squads of the Plasma Inceptors. So, it's hard to argue with the Plasma Inceptors. They do a lot of damage. Thanks, Adam. You always keep me right every week. Yeah, so it's hard to argue with the Plasma Inceptors. They generally math hammer really well. They generally, 18 shots per squad if you fight against units with more than 6 models. So 36 strength 8 plasma shots, potentially 2 damage a pop. They can do a lot of damage when they arrive in Deep Strike, and I guess a lot of people take like 4 or 5 in a single squad. I guess you get a bit more versatility by taking 2 squads, right? Because you can arrive in 2 places in the battlefield. You can remove units in 2 key positions. Don't want to jack the chat, but in putting together a 5-man assault squad, got a sword on the Sergeant, 1 hammer, 3 chain swords. What's the consensus on the pistols? Plasmas, flame, or bolts? I don't like plasma pistols because I think they're unreliable with the ones. Flame pistols, I guess, are probably okay right now. I don't know if assault troopers can take maybe they can all take combat shields. That might be a better option. I mean, the pistols never really kill a lot. Like if you have a 5-man squad of guys with pistols, you maybe get 1 or 2 wounds off it. It doesn't feel like the strong part of what we can bring to the battlefield, Matt. Alright, they're just cheap for the list, but I do have 10 of another list. Those are the double claws. Wouldn't... Oh, right, the double claws are... I guess you've just said 6 points. Yeah, okay, double claws for 6 points. Interesting. Okay, afternoon, Mick. How you doing? Yeah, so interesting. I mean, in terms of raw competitiveness, I think if you want to... If you want to raise this list, like, I've got no problem with your Chaplain, really good choice. I've got no problem with your Captain, again, good choice. I mean, I'm running both of these in the list that I'm running tomorrow, just slight variations on the Warlord traits and the relics and stuff. Again, I'm running your Sanguinary Priest as well, so all three of these choices are decent. I guess you can compare them to my choices, and when I tell you my justifications for them, you can decide, but, you've got a very good number of attacks on the Captain. You've got pretty useful synergy with the Chaplain and the Canticle of Hate. We then have, average troops, like I said. Like, in some maps, you kind of always end up trying to have to hold a backfield objective. If the backfield objective were being held by Assault Intercessors, it's kind of a wasted 100 points. Maybe if you had something slightly better that could either shoot or be more survivable, that would be preferable to me. But I mean, I guess Assault Squads is fine. Sanguinary Guard and Vanguard Veterans, I mean, it's hard to go wrong with these. People run double Vanguard Veteran squads with the Lightning Claws. Having the double Lightning Claws, I don't think personally adds enough bonus to not having a Storm Shield on every unit, right? If you have a Storm Shield on every unit, you basically increase their survivability against like heavy and difficult weapons by almost a ratio of like 70 or 80%. But if you have a Lightning Claw on a bunch of second guys, you actually only get 10 or 20% more damage. So in 9th edition, where there's a lot of emphasis on like holding objectives, performing secondaries, scoring points, I actually prefer more Storm Shields than the Lightning Claw, like the double Lightning Claws. But again, this is my own personal preference, and if you get the jump on the enemy, it doesn't really matter, I suppose. But that's just what I want to point out. 2 large squads of Sanguinary Guard. Again, you need to get the jump on these guys because they're not super survivable if they get jumped on. But I mean, you can usually do that. Usually, how some players do that is they take the Sanguinary Ancient with the Wrath of Baal to get the additional movement. So without the Wrath of Baal to get the additional movement, I don't know if the Sanguinary Ancient is really going to be worth it. Like you said, your Captain's the Warlord, so arguably your Captain is going to be able to keep up with the Sanguinary Guard. So all that the Captain being ranged in the Sanguinary Guard is going to make those Sanguinary Guards hit on 2s mostly anyways. So you're really only going to get the benefit of like a couple of Power Fists if the Sanguinary Ancient uses his aura on the Sanguinary Guard. I guess he could use his aura on the Vanguard Veterans, but yeah, he's a lot of points. Like, if you compare him up against your Captain, your 120 point Captain against this guy, right? Your Captain's going to have like 2 more wounds. He's going to have a better save. He's going to have a better invulnerable save. He's going to do like 7 more attacks. It's just not even comparable. The baseline stats. The only reason I feel right now you take the Sanguinary Ancient is Wrath of Baal. But I guess because if you really feel like you need another character in there, I feel like there's possibly better options. Like the Company Champion, you could always CP to reserve him. He could come in. The Company Champion and a couple of Company Veterans would actually be... They wouldn't be cheaper. They'd be pretty much about exactly the same points, right? Because it's 55 points plus 56 for the Veterans, and then 15 points to upgrade the Champion. So you'd actually be like maybe 2 or 3 more points, and you would basically have 3 models with way more damage. And if you wanted to give Visions of Death to one of them, I guess you could, or you could, you could give Rites of War because you had that up there. I'm not sure he's providing enough value for 125 points. And then your Inceptors, like I can't argue with Inceptors. A lot of people use them. It's a very viable stratagem. I actually use attack bites with multi-meltas. They come in the exact same 165 points for 3 of them. But Inceptors, probably they just function a bit different, right? Your Inceptors are going to be a lot better against troops. The attack bites are going to be a lot better against armor, but both units are definitely key units to help the Blood Angels in 9th edition, right? Yeah, this is a battalion list. And yeah, I guess you would have to switch to a double patrol, but if you did switch to the double patrol and lost one squad of assault intercessors, there's a few things you can do. Now, this list definitely has some weakness, Alex. And the weaknesses I see is you have no way to control fight first, fight last rules. So against like something like Death Guard, if they used that relic that makes you fight last, you're going to have big problems. Like if you charge in and then all your units are fighting last, you could potentially have big problems. And you've got no counter at all to psychic powers. No denies, and I guess you've got no psychic strength of your own. So maybe a few months ago I'd have thought this is a decent list, and I mean it's a fairly punchy list, right? Like there's a lot of damage that can be dealt out by this list. Like 2 squads of Inceptors, a lot of damage. Vanguard Veterans and the Sanguinary Guard, a lot of damage. Assault Intercessors, a lot of damage. Your HQ choices, the guy with the Wise Orator has he definitely can do a lot of damage because of his mantra of strength. And the captain again, 10 attacks or something, he can do a lot of damage. So in terms of competitiveness, like I feel like if you took this list to your average tabletop game, you would do pretty well with the list. Like I think it's an 8 out of 10 list or something. But like at the highest levels of competitive play, where like there's a lot of stuff that you need to be able to react to and deal with, then I guess it probably just falls a little bit short in my opinion. And we'll score it here in a second, but that's probably what I'm thinking right now. Are assault squads worth it for filling out faster chat choices? I don't think assault squads are worth it at all, really, Kai, because they just get 1 attack, which is dire, really. I mean, if you have assault marines, I'd probably run them as Vanguard Veterans just to get the additional attack. It only costs 1 point more per model. I'm surprised there isn't any D3 or more damage in this list. Would that work at all as well? I mean, the D3 damage thing comes down to like Dreadnoughts and Death Guard. If you're not fighting Dreadnoughts and Death Guard, then you're probably fine with plenty 2 damage weapons. But if you do encounter those Death Guard or those Dreadnoughts, then you have problems. And I guess this list is probably going to have some problems in that, because your Inceptors essentially lose 50% of the damage, the Sanguinary Guard lose 50% of their damage, your Captain with his Teeth of Terror loses 50% of his damage. So it's kind of it's a difficult thing to have to deal with. Don't I know? I mean, I spent the last 3 or 4 nights on Discord with you guys talking about how to make a strong list to fight Death Guard, and also Custodes, like a single list that can do everything. So, yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. Someone, Tom just said that the Whirlwind comes in at literally 125 points. So your overcosted Sanguinary Ancient could be a Whirlwind, and the Whirlwind instantly gives you that fight last stratagem for 1 CP each turn. You can choose a unit. If you do just take the cheaper Whirlwind, then you get 2d6 shots. So you get 2d6 shots against any unit 72 inches, so pretty much the entire board. If you hit them with a single shot, they fight last in your turn, and they fight last in the opponent's turn as well. So if you know you're going to be charged, like in my game against Death Guard, I'm expecting probably to be charged by 10 Blightlord Terminators. I will be 100% hitting them with suppressive fire, so that even if they charge me, I get all my units that they charge to fight first, and then essentially when it comes round to my turn, even though they charge me and they should be fighting first again, I will fight first again. So I'll basically get to do the combat in the order that gives me like giant benefits, because 10 Blightlord Terminators is going to be a horrendous amount of damage, right? There's probably like, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm guessing it's like 4 attacks per model and like maybe 5 for the Sergeant. So you're probably looking at like the best part of 40, maybe even 50 attacks for those Blightlord Terminators. I'm concerned about the Telemons and your Custodes matchup. Yeah, I mean, we'll probably need to try and deal with the Telemons with like our Chaplain or something doing his flat 4 damage. Otherwise, it'll be pretty difficult. You need some fast if you need some fast attack, take Outriders, says Kirk. Outriders are definitely a bit more survivable than assault squads. I mean, I kind of feel like they got an unnecessary 5 points added to them recently, when everything got rebalanced. But that's neither here nor there for this list, I guess. So yeah, I guess if this was me, and this was me actually probably like 3 or 4 months ago, where I had a lot of assault interceptors. I actually bought 2 boxes of Indomitus and had like 20. I painted 10 and I was running 10 in a lot of lists. I have since replaced them with Phobos units. At the start of 9th edition, maybe more than 3 or 4 months, but at the start of 9th edition, I was using the Sanguinary Ancient. I've now replaced that with a Whirlwind, and I've actually replaced one squad. So I was running Sanguinary Guard, Death Company, Vanguard Veterans. I've actually replaced the Death Company with Blade Guard Veterans. So I'm going a little bit more tanky in my new list. And I guess, like I said, Sanguinary Guard, they're strong, but if somebody gets the jump on them and gets to fight first against them, they're not that strong. They're only toughness 4, they're only a 2+ save. There's a lot of high AP weapons in the game these days. There's a lot of 2 damage, like flat 2 damage weapons in the game as well. So you can lose a lot of Sanguinary Guard very quickly if someone gets the jump on them. So that's why I guess I would say a Whirlwind here is probably super important. And then if you aren't going to change your troop choices, the Whirlwind benefits you as well, because the Whirlwind can be used to sit on that backfield objective, and it can actually still do something, as opposed to your Assault Intercessors, who are going to be sat on there, spent 95 points, and they can't actually do anything except fire what their heavy bolt pistols 18 inches range, I think. So the chances are they'll just sit there and maybe shoot a bolt pistol, and unlikely actually hit or kill anything even if they're in range. Cool. Alright, so hello Van, thanks for tuning in today. How you doing? Right, let's try and score Alex's list out of 50 is what we always score out of, and we start with how good it is at objective holding and obsec. And there was a few tricks in this list, right, where he had close that. He had so it's really just the Visage of Death. So we can remove obsec. I guess it did mention Rites of War, but I think that has been cut. So we can remove obsec, and I guess we can have our Sanguinary Priest jump with our large squads of Vanguard Veterans or Sanguinary Guard. So normally like 3 troop choices is probably like an 8, and then I guess the Visage of Death maybe makes it like an 8.5. I do think that maybe it needs to be an 8 though, because if you're going to hold objectives with Assault Intercessors, it's really wasted points. Maybe you can have 1 squad of Assault Intercessors. Like I ran for a while like 2 squads of Phobos units and 1 squad of Assault Intercessors, and I thought that was okay. And I mean, because there was just 1 squad of Assault Intercessors, it meant that like I knew exactly where I was casting my Honour of the Chapter to get that fight twice. Whereas if you've got 3 squads of Assault Intercessors, you can only use the stratagem once per turn, so again you're kind of diminishing returns there. And Phobos troops have access to guerrilla tactics, which is super useful for scoring points later in the game, or even throughout the game. So let's say it's like an 8. Blast clear ability. Well, you've got 6 Plasma Inceptors, so 6 Plasma Inceptors will clear out a ton of troops, probably 36 troops, if you just want to blow through, well, not 36 troops, but they'd get 36 shots, right? You could play Descent of the Angels, hitting on 2s. You said they'd be range of your captain, re-rolling 1s. So you can do a lot of clear with them. You also have, I guess, like 14 Angelus bolt guns, so that gives you another 28 shots. And that's kind of it. So the plasmas and the bolt guns are going to be, or the Angelus bolt guns are going to be super important where you use them. You're going to get 60 shots around. So again, I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's amazing either, though, right? Like if you come up against an army with like tons of stuff, like I think I kind of want to check the Death Guard list that I linked yesterday, but I think he's bringing like 50 or 60 Poxwalkers. So maybe again it's like an 8. Anti-vehicle infantry. Oh, do you know what? Maybe we'll go with an 8.5 because we do have that captain with the Teeth of Terra, and he will just absolutely wreck. He'll wreck through infantry, right? Because he's got. I think he had the Imperium sword as well. So it's like, Teeth of Terra Imperium sword. So his sword's basically a strength 6 plus 1 to wound. So basically a wound toughness 5 on 2s, and it's going to be -2, 2 damage a shot. So he'll just absolutely wreck against pretty much any infantry as well. So something like that, 8.5. Anti-vehicle monster. So we've got a little bit of strength in our chaplain here. I mean, I'd have maybe liked to see the Benediction of Fury over the Icon of the Angel, but I get the strength of the Icon of the Angel if you're doing a lot of deep striking. The Assault Intercessors just bog standard with chainswords. We do have some Infernal Pistols and some Power Fists in the Sanguinary Guard. We do have a lot of those Lightning Claws as well, so they will be useful for taking out those tough to kill 1 damage targets like the Dreadnoughts and stuff that we said. And then Inceptors can do some work. So again, I guess it's probably like an 8.5. I think it would be stronger if there are a few 3 damage or above weapons in the list. I think in my list I only have 2 weapons that are 3 damage above, one that does 3 and one that does potentially 4. But I think oh no, tell a lie, I've got a 4th sword in there. So I've got 3 things that can do D3 damage or more, or 3 damage or more. So I think this is okay, but I think maybe there could be other interesting options. Like we could well, you've got the captain with the Teeth of Terra relic. Like you could change that out for the Hammer of Baal. The Hammer of Baal is kind of awesome with the captain with Imperium sword, right? Like that's what I did the video on last week, where it's basically hitting on strength 9, hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, and flat 3 damage. So and -3 as well, as opposed to the regular Thunderhammer, which is -2. And yeah, I mean, I do agree with what Mark said. I think a single Whirlwind is fine. I wouldn't take more than 1. Damage 3 vs Plague Marines is quite good as well. Yeah, I mean, definitely important to have that extra damage against those Plague Marines. Chief Apothecary Sanguinary Priest offers a lot more utility to keep Sanguinary Guard alive and in Assault Doctrine. Yeah, that's very true as well. So your Sanguinary Guard will be in Assault Doctrine. Hey John, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. However, I guess there is questions around the 2 damage nature of their weapons, and I guess we've only seen a small amount of codexes, right? We've just seen, like, there's a lot of codexes still to come this edition, so we don't know what else or who else might have some sort of Guardian, Eternal, Duty Eternal, revoltingly resilient, disgustingly resilient, sorry. Okay, mobility wise, well, we have all jump packs on everything except our troop choices. So I mean, I guess we're like a 9.5. Like the only way we could probably score a 10 is if all our troops were Phobos as well, right? Because then they could use the guerrilla tactics and sort of bounce around the map a bit as well. And then specialization. So in specialization, we mark people down if they are too specialized to a single thing. I don't think this list is too specialized. I think it's a solid like 8 or 9 again. I think it could either use some way to make the enemy fight last, which can be done via the Psyker, or it can be done via the Whirlwind. And I would really like to see like 1 unit of Phobos troops. And where I am right now is like I'm putting a lot of weight on one of your captains or your chapter master starting on the table and putting them on a bike so they're more survivable. I like putting my chapter master on a bike because at the start of the game I will give my chapter master rerolls to something and then zoom off like 21 inches, and I think that's a great tactic to use. I use it pretty much every game. So but overall I think the list is generally pretty unspecialized, so I think something like an 8 seems fine for that. So like 42 out of 50. And I did say before I looked at the list, Alex, I thought it was maybe like maybe an 8 out of 10. So I guess it's come out, if you divide this down by 10, you're literally like 8.5 out of 10. And I think if you've said this is a tournament list. So if this is going to be a tournament list, I definitely think you need to make a couple of small changes rather. I don't think this is a million miles away at all. You could, if you want to do it with minimum effort, you could take like one unit of incursors or infiltrators and swap out the predator. Swap out the ancient for a whirlwind, and then already you're in a much better position. But yeah, and maybe like with all your plasma inceptors, right? So you've got 36 shots from those guys arriving, and you've got, what did we say, like 20 Angelus bolt gun. Is the Teeth of Terror the best choice on this captain? Like, would he not be better off as a Hammer of Baal captain, right? Because you've got plenty of ways to, and especially having all these assault intercessors as well, right? So each assault intercessor squad, once you get to turn 3, gives you 26 attacks. Do you really need more attacks to kill infantry? Because that's what this guy's going to be doing with the Teeth of Terror, right? He's literally killing infantry. Whereas if he had the Hammer of Baal, he's now killing armor, vehicles, monsters, characters. You know, like, I would probably be happy to give up those 3 extra attacks that the Teeth of Terror gives you to have. So what would it be? It would be like the Teeth of Terror has got you on 10 attacks, whereas the Thunderhammer would be of 7 attacks. Well, if every attack hit and wounded with the Teeth of Terror, you do 20 damage. If every attack hit and wounded with the Thunderhammer, you do 21 damage. So you'd actually do more damage with the Thunderhammer. Obviously, it wouldn't be as good against like small, like. It wouldn't be as good against troops, but it would be better against like armor, and obviously it's going to wound more reliably against monsters and armor, because essentially with Imperium Sword it's toughness 9. So that's something else I think I need to throw into the mix. So like if you're gonna, like we said, this list has no damage 3 weapons, so if you come up against something that's going to have -1 damage, you know, these things are going to get punished. Especially the Teeth of Terror, you're going to lose 50% of its damage, right? But if you come up against something that's got minus damage and you're wielding the Hammer of Baal, you're only going to lose 33% damage, right? Because it's only going to take 1 away from the 3. So hopefully that's some good points, and hopefully it just maybe makes you think a little bit about how this list could be better. But I mean, it's a solid enough score, and I think it's a solid enough list. You will win games at tournaments with this list for sure. You will maybe at tournaments run into things that will make this list come a little bit unstuck. So yeah, I mean, I always try and tell people when I go over their lists, it's kind of difficult for me to just go over a list and never see it played on the table. So maybe the best thing you need to do is, if you're going to a tournament with a list, take it, but just remember the things I said, and then after the games, do a post-mortem and be like, would it have been better there if I'd had my Hammer of Baal? Like, would my captain have killed that thing that he didn't kill, or etc., etc. And yeah, that's kind of what I think. So hopefully that's useful, Alex. Steve, thank you very much for following. Nice to have another member here. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to list number 2 today, and list number 2 is by Tom Harris, who is also a member. Cool. What about Mastercrafted Relic Plate for him? You have the high AP plus 3 damage. Mastercrafted Relic Plate. Oh, Relic Blade, you mean? Yeah, I mean, you could do a Mastercrafted Relic Blade as well. I mean, it's still going to be Strength 8, right? -3, and it would be 3 damage. Thing is, if you're going to Mastercraft the Relic Blade, you'd be better off, like, you save a few points. I think you save 10 points, right? Because a Relic Blade is normally 10 points and a Thunderhammer on the Captain is 20 points. So you save 10 points, but you lose basically 1 strength. I guess it depends if you're running into toughness 8 enemies or not, you know, because that means you're wounding them that bit more reliable or not. Thanks, yeah, I remember to change the name. Hammer of Baal is just flat better than a Mastercrafted Relic Blade. Yeah, I mean, it's 10 points more expensive, but it is better, I think. I think if you can find the 10 points, I'd probably go for it, but if you can't find the 10 points, I guess I guess not. I guess you give it up. The interesting thing as well is if you do like if you're running him as a chapter master and you mastercraft a Thunderhammer, then later in the game maybe he can actually make himself do rerolls. So although you get although you're going to miss a few times with the Thunderhammer, right, because it's basically like -1 to hit, if you give himself the rerolls, then you are going to be able to hit with a 4 damage Thunderhammer pretty reliably as well, which is also interesting. But I think you have to try some of these things before you just change them based on my opinion. If I haven't played your list precisely, then it's hard for me to give super accurate updates on it. Okay, so this next list is from Tom, and here's an updated list. My meta is a lot of Necrons, Death Guard and Marines with occasional Orcs and Elders. I modelled my army off the one that won the Grand Tournament a few weeks ago. I mean, this is a great place to start, right? Like, I love modelling armies off tournament winning lists. I tend to not copy them, but it's good to know what people are winning tournaments with, right? Except I don't have a Sicarian tank with plasmas, so I added what I have. I am sneaky and like to get the Derrodeo in close combat with something huge, because the next turn it can fire all of its weapons in combat, and I've caught people by surprise with that. I like the Volkite to finish off some cheeky 2 mortals on a 6, and it's durable. The true Redemptors and Librarians can usually get in close combat pretty easily, and Wisdom Ancient for the -1 damage gives them a lot of staying power. Especially because people are building lists to kill Marines with the new 2 damage weapons. Yeah, I mean, I guess that is true. Dreadnoughts can be very survivable in the new edition. I dropped 1 squad of Suppressors, but I love turning off the Overwatch on a big block of Orcs or Necrons, and they're good at sitting in the corner and holding an objective. I think this army is pretty counter meta with all the Dreadnoughts. If you all have a problem with the Derrodeo, I can put in a squad of Terminators or Centurions. They can walk up the board and come in from reserve in its place in the elite slot. Yeah, I mean, I just got Centurions, so I'm looking forward to trying them. I'm not going to be trying them quite yet, but hoping to, try them too. Cool. Rezio says Tom with an exclamation mark. I'm not sure. You're better off taking a mastercrafted weapon, putting on a Thunderhammer for the 4th damage. Yeah, see, I run my captain as a chapter master. I mean, it's a lot of points to make him the chapter master. I think it's like, do you know what? We had the Space Marine errata up a minute ago, didn't we? How many points is it to make him a chapter master? Yeah, it's 40 points to make him a chapter master. So I guess you have to decide. Are 40 points worth 5 turns of potentially rerolls on whatever unit is within 6 inches? So basically if you divide 40, you're basically saying 8 points. So is it worth 8 points to give himself rerolls later in the game, or to give Sanguinary Guard or whatever is around him rerolls? It can feel a bit expensive. I mean, he does get access to that better relic by being a chapter master as well. And I guess, do you know what, we'll find out just how good that is tomorrow when we come up against Death Guard, because the Death Guard have that -1 toughness aura, so having the chapter master sitting on base toughness 6 might be pretty important. Okay, so let's have a look at this list by Tom, and it's basically a 2,000 point list, and we start with a Vanguard detachment. So, Librarian Dreadnought with the Meltagun. He has Imperium Sword, Quickening, Unleash Rage. Surprised you didn't give him Wings of Sanguinius, but okay. And then we have a Tech Marine. Just the basic Tech Marine here, no buffs or anything too fancy. Then we have an 8-man Death Company, 3 Thunderhammers, 5 Death Company Marines, so that'll be Bolter and Chainsword. A Derrodeo Dreadnought with the Volkite Falconet Battery. I guess it wouldn't have had the missiles, and I guess you're probably running heavy flamers on the Derrodeo as opposed to the heavy bolters. Could you go and fire into the chat if you're running the heavy flamers or the heavy bolters on the Derrodeo? We got 2 Redemptors, both armed with the macro and the onslaught. This is the model I was painting the other night on stream. This is the best way to run him, with the storm bolters and the macros. It's the strongest. We then have 8 Sanguinary Guard. You didn't say if it's swords or axes, but I mean, I guess if you've watched my recent video, you'll know swords and axes are both pretty great. And then I guess it's some more Sanguinary Guard. This one has a couple of Power Fists, Infernal Pistols, and I guess swords and axes, again, probably a mix here. I feel that Librarian Dreadnought needs wings, that other powers are more optional. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the Librarian a lot with the wings. I think it gives you that surprise element, and you mentioned that you like being sneaky. I guess we'll have to see what other things you have. We have 1 Suppressor Squad, and we also have 1 Whirlwind. And it is the Vengeance Launcher on the Whirlwind, not the Castellan. So the Strength 7, -1, 2 damage shots. We then have the Sanguinary Priest with the Icon of the Angel. Selfless Healer, obviously. 1 Incursor Squad, and that is it. Wow. That's 2,000 points, is it? Wow. 105, 240, 340, 475. I guess 500 points of Sanguinary Guard. Yeah, I mean, I guess that is 2,000 points. Okay, so 2 Redemptors, 2 squads of Sanguinary Guard, squad of Death Company and a Derrideo, a Librarian, the Sanguinary Priest, the Incursors, the Whirlwind, and the Suppressors. Okay, I mean, this is definitely, like you said, this is not a meta list. It's very anti-meta. Swords are better, fight me, says Mark. Yeah, I mean, swords are, I guess, quite a bit better if you take Null Zone. Swords definitely pull ahead. And then one thing that I didn't mention when we were doing swords, which I probably should have mentioned, is the Red Rampage Stratagem. You know, I haven't played Red Rampage much since they changed it from like the additional attacks for a single character. You know, Red Rampage now increasing the AP across the board could definitely be very useful against anything that you're going to null zone, right? Because like if you're null zoning with swords and you play Red Rampage, you're potentially making it -5. So basically, like if they don't have, so you're basically removing their invulnerable save and stopping them get a regular save as well. So you're just totally removing their save altogether. Yeah, Warhammer drops all the default stuff. It just says Sanguinary Guard, they have swords. Okay, it's pretty stupid that it drops the default stuff, but yeah, I mean, I guess they're still working out and trying to make that app better. Yeah, it's an interesting list, and I mean, I am running a Dreadnought in my list. I generally like Dreadnoughts. I think they are very strong at the moment because of the -1 damage, and the Librarian Dreadnought, I actually, you know, we looked at him on Friday's Mathhammer video, and I was surprised to see that he kept right up with the Death Company Captain, and he kept right up with the Chaplain on the bike. In terms of survivability, even though he's a no invulnerable save, you know, the additional points of toughness and that -1 to all damage just generally make him quite a bit more survivable, and it's surprising, I think, or at least it surprised me. Like, I wasn't expecting him to stay as survivable as the Death Company Captain, especially when the Death Company Captain has like a 2-up, a 4+ invulnerable, and then that 6+ feel no pain. I was thinking, and he, you know, on a bike, the Death Company Captain is toughness 5 and like 6 wounds. I was convinced he was going to be way more survivable than the Librarian Dreadnought, but no, Librarian Dreadnought keeps up, and yeah, I like Unleash Rage, right? Because Unleash Rage gives your Sanguinary Guard potentially like 10 more attacks, right? Like if you have an 8-man Sanguinary Guard and they're an Assault Doctor and you're talking 40 attacks with exploding 6s, if you roll 40 dice, how many 6s do you get? I mean, averages say you should get probably like 8, maybe 7. Yeah, like 7, I think. So I like Unleash Rage, and I know it adds a lot of attacks. However, I feel like maybe it would be a better option to make him Chief Librarian, right? And give him Wings of Sanguinius as well, so he can, because the 6-inch movement on the Librarian is kind of dreadful. So you'd need to free up like 20 some points for the Chief Librarian. I guess it's open here in this other tab. 25 points. So you'd have to try and free up 25 points. Maybe you could consider like dropping the Vengeance Launcher on the Whirlwind. That would save you 10. Maybe you could consider dropping a couple of Power Fists. Like, I'm not sure if the Power Fists provide really great value, because the Power Fists are going to be -1 to hit, but then for the most part it's just going to be +1 to your wound roll, which means that there's almost no advantage to it, right? Just take the swords and it'll just end up the same, because what you gain in your wound roll, you're going to lose in your hit roll. So it's pretty much going to be the same. You don't really have anything in here that's going to be buffing the Sanguinary Guard's chance to hit. So maybe you could lose a couple of Power Fists, or maybe you just need to lose 1 Thunderhammer, so you just run 6 Death Company Marines and 2 Hammers. I think 6 and 2 Hammers is okay. And then maybe that just gives you the option to do a little bit more with Librarian. He can cast 3 powers a turn, remember, because we do have that stratagem for 1 CP to cast a 3rd power. Or cast an additional power, rather, not a 3rd power. Yeah, and I mean, I guess other people are saying you could take Shield of Sanguinius on him as well. I guess that would be an option too. I feel like you either take Unleash Rage or Shield, like, and then Quickening and the Wings are sort of core. The Death Company and the Sanguinary Guard, these guys are all good. The Whirlwind to grant you that fight last thing is important as well. The Suppressors, I guess, against your Necron heavy meta and your Death Guard heavy meta, the Suppressors to turn off Overwatch, definitely going to be useful. Incursors to give you board control. Sanguinary Priest to do some healing and get you the Assault Doctrine. So overall, I think it's a pretty solid list. I mean, it's going to hurt a little bit on OBSEC because you don't have any. Bar the one choice, and you're probably not going to be deploying them in the backfield, so maybe it's going to hurt a little bit on OBSEC, but I mean, it is going to be, it definitely has like a good amount of firepower coming out, right? And then I guess it's backed up by a strong close combat detingent, and once your Librarian and the Redemptor Dreads get into close combat as well, I mean, these things need to be focused down by the enemy before they get into close combat, because if they don't, then they'll wreck face when they get into close combat. So it gives the enemy a tough decision, right? Do they try and take out the Sanguinary Guard, or do they try and take out all these Dreadnoughts marching towards them? And yeah, I mean, the Redemptor Dreadnought is one of the most cost-effective units point-wise in the game right now. I was really on the fence this weekend about running the Redemptor Dreadnought or running the Leviathan. I ended up going with the Leviathan because I just like units to survive, and the Leviathan obviously has 1 more wound, 1 better armor save, and the 5+ invulnerable save. So I went with the Leviathan. It is arguably one of the most... I think it is arguably... Or I think it is not arguably. I think it just is the most survivable armor unit that we can bring to the battlefield right now. But the Redemptor's right up there. If it's not, it's like second. And then do you know what? The Derrideo is very very survivable as well. Obviously with its same, I think it's like 11 wounds on a Derrideo, or 12 wounds. I mean, it's very similar. I think it's 11 or 12. It's very similar to the Redemptor Dreadnought. Again, I did a video on it a few weeks back, and in terms of like damage output at range, the Derrideo is one of the best for like damage output at 36 inches is generally very consistent. And for the point, like if you want something to sit in the backfield and just pop out, like it'll do like 10 wounds per turn to other armor, or probably a bit more to infantry and stuff. So if you just want a Dreadnought to sit in the backfield and just pop out like 10 wounds per turn, then the Derrideo is probably what you want. I mean, I can tempt her with a couple of those new Volkite cannons as well, and maybe like a Cyclone missile launcher is decent, but the Derrideo is a little bit more survivable. So, dead men can't hold objectives. Yeah, that's very true as well. So sometimes that's why I don't put too much emphasis on like Rites of War. Like I haven't running Rites of War in my list, so I'm not running the other one. What's it called? Visage of Death. I just try and kill the enemy on the objectives. Like I don't generally bring the powers that give you OBSEC. But this list doesn't have them anyway, so it's fine. I'm trying to think relic wise. Like I feel like it might be worth paying 1 CP to give your Warlord an additional trait, like one of the Blood Angels traits, like, or an additional, yeah, I mean, like, or you can give him Artisan of War and give him, like, Artificer Armor, make him more survivable. It might be an interesting option. I was going to say he could take Teeth of Terror, but he can't because he already has Icon of the Angel. So, maybe you could do that, and I mean, I feel like you've got a lot of CP here, so maybe like you could even put Quake Bolts on the Incursor Sergeant or something. Try and get some pop shots off with Incursor Sergeant to grant some +1 to hits for the Sanguinary Guard, or +1 to hits for the Death Company. Might be an interesting option as well. Because I feel like with all these Dreadnoughts, like there's not really very many stratagems you're going to be using around the Dreadnoughts. I guess you're going to be doing suppressive fire, and maybe you're going to do the odd transhuman, but you're not going to be able to like transhuman the Sanguinary Guard or the Death Company or the Tech Marines, so you're not going to spend a whole heap of CP in this list. So I would maybe try and spend 1 or 2 more at the start of the game, Tom. But I mean, that's just my approach. If I can clear an objective, that's a 10-point swing in my turn. Yeah, I mean, it's important to try and clear the objectives, right? And sometimes I think it's just more important to have the units prepared and ready to kill the objective, to kill what's on the objectives, as opposed to trying to to try and take away the enemy's obsecness. If you're enjoying the stream today, guys, please hit the like button. It does help out a lot the channel, and I do always really appreciate it if you hit that like button. So I guess let's talk about scoring Tom's list, and it's kind of a different list to the normal metas. But we like different on this show, because if everyone just saved the same list every week, that would be a little bit boring. Okay, so we're starting with the library. Oh, sorry. I guess we're starting with OBSEC, and it's a little bit lower in OBSEC, but I mean quite a bit lower, I suppose. But so we're giving up a lot of OBSEC. It might not be too important because we're going to try and kill everything, but I guess like we have to take, with only one OBSEC unit, I guess we have to score it pretty low in OBSEC, where it's like a 5 or something. How is it going to deal with like hordes and stuff like that? I think it's going to deal really well. Like, you've got the Whirlwind, you've got the Suppressors, you've got a lot of Sanguinary Guard with Bolters, you've got 2 Redemptors with macros and Onslaught Cannons, you've got the Derodeo with all its missiles and its Volkites. So I think it's gonna do much better against horde armies than a bunch of the lists that we see. Going to be able to get rid of all the rubbish units and get straight in for your charges. How's it going to do in close combat, or how's it going to do against armor? I think it's going to do pretty well, right? Like, the 2 macroplasmas are nice. The other dreadnought as well is nice. It kind of makes it difficult for the enemy to choose the targets, because they need to deal with all these things. And then when we do get in, we've got a ton of swords, we've got them thunderhammers. If we can get this Librarian dreadnought in as well, we have a very strong dreadnought with potentially 10 attacks as well. And then we've got the Tech Marine that can either buff any of the dreadnoughts to give them that nice 2+ BS. So overall, I guess against armor and stuff, I guess it's probably like a 9-5. Like, it's going to be very punchy and very killy. I think so. How are we going to do in mobility? Well, the mobility is definitely less. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's quite a bit less. We've got like 4 jump pack units: the 2 Sanguinary Guard, the Suppressors, the Warlord, and the Death Company. So 4 units in 1 character. So yeah, I mean, mobility is like a 6 as well, I guess. It's not bad, but it's not amazing. And then specialization, I don't think it's too specialized. Like, I think this list can do a lot. It can definitely do a lot of killing, and yeah, something to be said is, like, if you are just killing the enemy all over the map, then you may end up just winning because you're killing them all over the map. I think it's like an 8-5 for specialization, maybe a couple of points off, or a 1.5 off, because we've got too many. Wow, I've never seen the graph look quite as mad as that for the maybe I just make this a bit bigger. I've never quite seen the graph look as weird as that for a list, but yeah, maybe just a couple of points off, because we are giving up a lot by having just 1 troop choice, and then I guess we are. Do you know what? We do have the fight last, so maybe it could be a 9, but I think it's something like an 8.5. Sometimes the numbers vary. Like, on a different day I might have given you a 9, but today I think we'll go with 8.5. So what's important to say though is, like, 38 out of 50 doesn't sound like a great score, but this list will be very difficult to kill and beat. I mean, or the list will be very difficult to kill. Maybe you can, like, out-obsec it and you can win the game because of that, or maybe there is some other ways that, like, the list struggles a bit, but I don't think it's a bad list. Like, I generally, at the start of 9th edition, I was playing a list that had was it like a Redemptor, a Leviathan, a Contemptor, and a Land Raider. So I was playing a list at the start of 9th edition when I didn't really know. We didn't have our codex, so we were using our 8th edition rules, and I didn't really know what was strong in 9th edition at all. I just knew Dreadnoughts were really strong because of the -1 damage. So I was like, and then Terminators had been buffed, right? So I really wanted to try Land Raiders with Terminators in them. So I was running a list with basically 4 units of armor in it, and that list actually won like a lot of games in a row. I stopped playing that list as well, just because like I thought to myself, like, this list doesn't feel very Blood Angels, and like I want to get more of the feeling of Blood Angels. But you know, a lot of Dreadnoughts with a lot of -1 damage, and a lot of, like, you know, the claws are kind of ridiculous, and it was the same, you know, like in the list I was running, I had like 3 Dreadnought Siege Claws, or 3 Dreadnought Claws, and you can do a lot of work with those Dreadnoughts. And what would happen is people would ignore the Dreadnoughts, they'd be trying to kill other things, and the Dreadnoughts would just mop everything up by the end of the game. So 38 out of 50 seems a bit like, you might look at that and think it's a poor list. I don't think it's a poor list at all. I think it can do a lot of work. But maybe I would play this list. I just think that I would like to see a way of getting wings into this character, because I really like wings on Librarian Dreadnought. I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for him, and even sometimes the wings can be useful for smiting, because obviously smite has to hit the closest visible target. Sometimes you can use wings and you can just position yourself really tactically and get like some key smites off as well. So that's something to consider too. Okay. So hopefully that was useful, Tom. I see you've said a couple of points. Dropping some special weapons to open up some points. Basically run the Dreadnoughts as a second wave to hammer into them. I forget about my back's feel except for the troops usually. Yeah, I mean that seems fine. I mean, you've got the Whirlwind to sit on a backfield objective as well. So I think there's a bit you can do with this list. Alright, so we're going to move on to Adam H next. But yeah, thanks very much for the submission, Tom. Nice to see a different list. An interesting list, I think. Oops, wrong list. Okay, let me just update this, and we'll move on to list number 3 today. Adam H. Cool. Alright, best of luck getting through the list. Yeah, we get through lists, you know, we get through a good number of lists every week. We do 5 every week on this show, so cool, Adam H. Right. Majority of the force would move up the middle and expand outwards. Lots of fast moving units, so it should be able to manoeuvre the board effectively. Sanguinary Guard will do their thing and jump on the bigger threats with Smash Captain, while the Death Company come in turn 2 to 3 to clear backlines. The big shocker here is the 2 squads of Outriders. I think their speed, toughness and their core state should work well, synergizes well with the Priest. The name of the list is an inexorable advance. Yeah, I saw that, and I think I generally like that list. I mean, I think that's pretty much what I was running before. Obviously different units and stuff, but just advancing down the board with the Dreadnoughts, leaving as little as you can behind, and kind of using the Dreadnoughts to soak up all the fire so that your Death Company, your Sanguinary Guard can get a lot of work done. I think it's a total valid tactic, and I've seen it win games. Okay. Right, so this is a 2,000 point battalion, and we have 1 relic of the chapter. So we start with a captain who has the Hammer of Baal, Jump Pack, Storm Shield. Okay. We then have a Librarian Dreadnought, Quickening, Wings, Iron Resolve, and he's the hero of the chapter to get the Iron Resolve. And then we have the Sanguinary Priest, who is the Warlord, who is the Selfless Healer, and is the Chief Apothecary. Okay, cool. And then troop-wise, we got 2 Assault Intercessor Squads, 2 regular Intercessor Squads. Elite-wise, we have a small Death Company, 5 guys, Bolter, Chainsword, 1 with a Power Fist, Jump Packs. Sanguinary Guard, we have 8, 2 squads, 5 swords, 3 axes in both, which seems absolutely fine. You know, the swords do perform most of the time better than the axes, but I was thinking of running 4 and 4, but maybe I should be running 5 and 3. I think that's pretty good as well. I guess I've already made the list for tomorrow, so I'll be running 4 and 4, but maybe 5 and 3 is one of the best choices. We then have the 2 squads of Outriders. They made Outriders 150 points per model. Is that what they put them up to? They used to be, I think they used to be 45 and they put them up to 50. That's unjustified. They didn't need to be 150 points for the 3 Outriders. But anyway, we have if you think the attack bikes with multi-melt is only 5 points more, that actually kind of surprises me. Okay, so we've got the 2 squads of Outriders, and then we've got 2 squads of Eradicators with the melt rifles. My most current version of the list has 10 Vanguard Veterans that can combat a squad for that exact reason. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to improve that list further. The Vanguard Veterans are just so versatile. And I guess the great thing about Vanguard Veterans is Quake Bolts is also an option, an easy option, or something like a master-crafted relic blade on the Vanguard Veteran Sergeant. How do you feel about that, Highland Phoenix? Because you were the one that didn't like the relic blade on the Captain, but how would you feel about a master-crafted relic blade on the Vanguard Veteran Sergeant? Because I haven't run that myself, but I thought it sounded pretty interesting. Okay. So Eradicators to bring up the heavy support, 6 of them. That's a lot of multi shots. Outriders to push a flank. Sanguinary Guard to sort of take the middle of the board with a Smash Captain, or maybe not take the middle, but assault the middle. Yeah, I mean, that's right, Jason. 4 and 4 does sound like it'll be better tomorrow, depending on... Just depends on who the Sanguinary Guard end up fighting against, I guess. I can't decide if those Blightlord Terminators are going to arrive from Deep Strike or not, so I guess that's the interesting thing. The Death Company with the Power Fist, I think this is fine. And then the troop choices, I feel like we've got one too many troop choices, and maybe what we need to do in this list to make it better is to drop one of these troop choices and take the Whirlwind. And I guess to do that you just need to lose one Sanguinary Guard or something like that. So again, I prefer Phobos units to these. I resisted for a while getting Phobos units, but once you actually get them and you run them, you'll know straight away once you've run them in a few games they are 100% better than Assault Intercessors, Tactical Marines. What else can you even have as troops? I think that's it. So your Phobos units are your best troops. Hands down, they win that battle for me. So that's what I would be doing. If you're not deep striking your Sanguinary Guard, which it doesn't sound like you are, Adam, then potentially consider this captain being on a bike, because I mean, I'm running him on a bike. I really have had... People have asked me, have I had problems with him on the bike? And, like, do you know what? Maybe I'll have problems with him on the bike tomorrow, but, like, for the most part, the answer is no. A regular captain has strength 4, toughness 4, 5 wounds. On a bike, he gets 5 toughness and 6 wounds. So he gets +1 toughness, and he gets +1 wound on the bike, right? And then when you actually look at the points cost, which is the interesting part, I mean, I guess there's other interesting parts about it as well, but the points cost for a regular captain, captain. Where's the regular captain? Oh, here. So regular captain is 85 points. Put on a jump pack is +25, so you're 110 points, right? Whereas a captain on a bike is 100 points. So you're literally 10 points less, and you get +1 toughness, +1 wound. So for me, you know, normally when we talk about getting +1 wound, that costs 10 points. Normally when we talk about getting +1 toughness, that costs 10 points. So that captain on the bike should really be 20 points more than the regular captain, but it turns out he's actually 10 points better. So in terms of like raw pointage or raw points spent, the captain on the bike is way better. He does move 2 inches more, but obviously he can't navigate straight over terrain, or he can't navigate over enemy models. But I think if you're smart, and I mean, I think if your enemy's smart, your enemy's never going to really let you jump over their models anyway, or there should be positioned that you shouldn't be able to jump over key models to get to key models as well. So that's why I love the captain on the bike so much. And that's why I've recommended, I guess, to a lot of people to consider making a captain on a bike, right? Like, it's just mad that he gets, 1 more wound, 1 more toughness, 10 less points. So I bought some of these on eBay. I do not think that is a real super chat. I think the super chat thing is bugged now, and we're going to see a shitload of super chats come through because it happened. It happened last night before I started the stream. So please ignore the fact that there's going to be a load of super chats come through. I guess for some reason Streamlabs is broken. I don't know why. I haven't changed any settings. But you're going to see basically the super chats for the last while come through. I did this on the stream the other night as well. Do you prefer incursors or infiltrators in my list? At the moment I'm running 1 squad of both. But I do love infiltrators probably more than I love incursors, because infiltrators get that 12-inch deep strike denial, but then incursors do get the +1... they get the -1 attack... the -1 AP from their combat blades, so arguably the incursors probably feel more Blood Angels and probably fit with Blood Angels better, but there's something hard to deny about how good the infiltrators are, right? That deep strike is really nice. Okay, I'm painting infiltrators while listening along, by the way, so there's no confusion for anyone. This is not my list. I'm Adam G and not Adam H. Yeah, I guess I got confused, so maybe Adam H isn't a supporter and it's Adam G that is a supporter. Sorry. Okay, so I think we could change out something here, and then the other thing to say is, like, Eradicators are good, but when we've talked about it, we feel like multi-melta bikes are better. I mean, they are a little bit more pointage, but you do pay 10 points more per model, but you do get 7 inches more movement. You do get no move and shoot penalty because the bikes aren't infantry, and then you do get +1 wound as well, right? Because the bikes have they have toughness 5 and they have 4 wounds per model. So Eradicators are probably fine. I feel like attack bikes fit with Blood Angels better, but I mean, Eradicators are definitely fine. If you lose the fallback and shoot stratagem, you'd lost secondary. Yeah, that's 100% right. If you fall back, you don't get the points from Oath of Moment. But I believe it's just 1 point Echo Mirage that you sacrifice for that, so it's not the end of the world if you have to fall back and shoot. I guess it depends on. I suppose it depends on whether you took Oath of Moment as well. I'm not sure a list like this scores Oath of Moment all that often, though, because I don't know what like really tanky unit you have that goes and sits in the middle of the board, right? Like in my list, I plan to take Oath of Moment because I plan to put Vanguard Veterans into the middle of the board and have them backed up with like a Psyker, a company champion, some veterans, and something like a librarian as well. So Oath of Moment makes a lot of sense for a list like that. For this sort of list, I think like engage on all fronts and maybe a more killing list makes sense. But yeah, so I think what I'd like to see in this list to make it better, consider a captain on a bike. If you're starting this guy on the table, you should definitely be considering the captain on the bike, I think. You only need to consider not having him start. You only need to consider having a jump pack if you're not starting him off the table. And even then, the captain on the bike can start on the table, uses 21-inch move in turn 1, and then the in turn 2, the drop pod guys or the deep strike guys can join him, right? It's not the end of the world. A 21-inch move in turn 1 should set you up for anywhere you need to get to. I would try and get some Phobos units in here. I generally think that's important. The Death Company and Marines are a decent shout to drop in and harass the backfield. It might be stronger if you had Lightning Claw Vanguard Veterans, but this is a decent enough option. It's impossible to argue with Sanguinary Guard. They are our most damaging unit. I actually like a lot of them with bolt guns. I think it helps clear out a lot of rubbish. There's an argument to including an Infernal Pistol or two, just for that return combat. So if you jump in, you do a lot of damage, but you don't kill everything, the enemy attacks you back. When it's your turn, if you have those infernal pistols, you do manage to occasionally pop something. it can happen. It can be a flat 8 damage. And then Outriders to push a flank. So I've never had a great experience with Outriders. Obviously, they get like 17 attacks when they charge, but once the charge is worn off, they drop a lot of their attacks, right? Because they don't have that devastating charge rule. And I think once their attacks drop, they're quite average. So you need to make sure that you're charging the right targets with them and making the right kills. And if you don't, then potentially things can go fairly badly for you. So I guess you have to think about that with Outriders. And yeah, I mean, the Eradicators, point for point, they are some of the most damaging units in the game. But is there a way that you could be a bit more Blood Angels? Yes, maybe, if you considered like Wit Tank 30. Thanks for following, brother. Appreciate that. Point for point, I guess the Eradicators could be great, but I mean, I guess you should maybe consider Attack Bites with Multi-Meltas. Attack Bites with Multi-Meltas also combo nice with your Sanguinary Priest, right? Because your Sanguinary Priest can bring them back. They're obviously very mobile, and there's some nice stratagems that you can use with them as well. So okay, let's score the list. And do you know what? The last two lists have kind of looked like my lists maybe 6 months ago. So my lists, I feel like, have evolved a little bit from these, but these lists aren't bad lists at all. And I think they'll do okay. So let's go ahead and score this one. So Adam actually has 4 troop choices at the moment. So I guess 2 intercessors to sit on backfield, 2 to push forward. So maybe it's like an 8.5 for OBSEC, because we do have 4 OBSEC units. How do we do up against hordes? Well, I mean, if we're gonna run into hordes, I guess we're gonna have to use like our Outriders to deal with them, or like the Angelus bolt guns. Like, it doesn't have a whole lot of firepower at all, this list. So I guess like you don't really want to be wasting your Eradicators on like chaff units as well. So maybe it's like a 7.5. Just something to consider. Like, maybe it would be better if there was a little bit more clear in here. And I guess normally when I talk about, like, I like to see about 500 points of reasonable shooting in Blood Angels. And I guess your Outriders could do a little bit of shooting, and your Sanguinary Guard can do a little bit of shooting. Maybe I've been a little bit harsh with 7.5. Maybe it's an 8, but the way I'm feeling right now is it's a 7.5. Okay, and then up against monsters, obviously, if our Eradicators can get target on these things, or up against armor, the Eradicators could do a lot. The Sanguinary Guard obviously can do a lot. We only have 1 Power Fist in that Death Company, so that's kind of average. And I guess we do have a Thunder Hammer and a Librarian Dreadnought, so they could do a bit as well. So maybe it's a bit stronger against sort of armor, like maybe an 8.5. I think I would have liked to see, like, I'd have probably liked to see that the captain was the warlord, right? And that the Sanguinary Priest was like hero of the chapter, maybe? And then we maybe gave the... Like, I think... Yeah, Adam, I think you need to give the captain a relic and... Oh, you give him the Hammer of the Ball, but I think you need to give him a warlord trait. Like, I think it's a waste to not give him one. Gift of Foresight is really good for Blood Angels. What else? Like, Imperium Sword is really good as well. So I think you could totally spend something and give him a warlord trait as well. I think that would add to your captain, just, an additional attack, an additional +1 to hit or something, or maybe even Champion of Humanity if you're going to be hunting characters with him. That might be an option. Do you know what? Champion of Humanity wouldn't give him much benefit actually. Because I was thinking it was a regular Thunderhammer. So, but yeah, Gift of Foresight or Imperium Sword on this guy would buff his damage a little bit, maybe like 20 or 30%, and the Gift of Foresight would make him more survivable, which is important. Like, if he's carrying this relic, it's basically one of your best weapons in the whole list. Give him that free reroll a save every turn. It's pretty decent. Yeah, I don't like the Outriders can only be squads of 3. I guess it's because the models or the bases are quite big, right? But 3 units is okay. So mobility wise, Outriders are mobile, Sanguinary Guard are mobile, Death Company are mobile, then we got our troops, and all of our HQ are mobile, and we did take Winds of Sanguinius. So mobility is better than the last list, maybe like an 8, maybe an 8.5 even. And then Specialization, I don't think it's too specialised. I mean, it's going to have the same fight last problems. I don't think this is quite as a competitive list as the previous two lists that we've looked at. So it's going to have problems against like armies that can make you fight last. It's going to maybe have some problems against psychic armies, and that you've got no way to do any sort of psychic countering. And yeah, I mean, your eradicators are going to struggle a little bit because they're immobile. But I mean, overall, I guess that gives it like a solid 8 as well. So yeah, I think like I said, this is probably more like an early 9th edition list, and with a few tweaks that could be made quite a bit better. Hey Chaos, good afternoon. Did you get your box yet? Because I sent it on Tuesday, so congratulations again on that. So you should have that soon. Okay. Cool. So Adam's list, 41 out of 50. Not a bad list. Maybe needs a few little tweaks there. Maybe some Phobos troops. Maybe an extra warlord trait. Maybe throw the captain on the bike. And maybe just think about a little... Yeah. Outriders are very hard for me to review because I have not had great success with them. I mean, like, their twin bolt rifle, it gives you a little bit of like clear, but I mean it's not exciting, and they're just chain swords. You know, like an assault intercessor squad would get more attacks than Outriders, right? And like they're 50 points cheaper. Sure, they're less mobile, and sure they have less toughness, but if you're thinking about the Outriders are going to go in and do a lot of damage for you, they're not. They're not that unit. They're just a unit that harasses the flank, I guess. So, and then yeah, I mean eradicators are fine. I mean, point for point, they're fine. I guess they're just not. They're not too. They don't feel too Blood Angels. Right, so we'll move on to list number 4 for today, and this list came from Ads. I think that's how you say it. ADDZ Ads. Cool, and this list is also 2,000 points, and it is Battalion, yes. Cool, and it starts with 7 CP. And this list takes 2 relics of the chapter, and it starts with a Chaplain who has the Mantra of Strength, the Canticle of Hate. He is the Master of Sanctity with the Icon of the Angel, and he has a jump pack. He has the Litany of Hate, obviously. He also has Rites of War, and he has the Wise Orator. Okay, so a Chaplain that has 2 litanies casting on 2s, and he also brings Rites of War to the table. We then have the Librarian, who has Veil of Time, Null Zone, and Psychic Fortress. So basically a regular Librarian who's the Chief Librarian. He has Psychic Mastery and Tomb of Malachor, so we're actually missing a power here, because Chief Librarian with Tomb of Malachor can actually have 3 powers from the Librarian and 1 from the other... Sorry, 3 from the Librarius Discipline and 1 from the Sanguinary Discipline, so we're actually missing a power here. I guess he maybe was thinking it would be Quickening, or Wings, I guess. Probably Wings. Some people like Wings on the jump pack Librarian just to give him a huge amount of mobility, and he's got the Force Sword. We then also have the Sanguinary Priest, Selfless Healer, as always. Very common Sanguinary Priest pickup. For troops, we have 2 Incursor squads and an Intercessor squad. I think you are I want to say that you're getting the Eradicators. One of the other people said that they want the Blade Guards, and one of the other person wanted the Storm Speeder, and I think you had Eradicators down as number 2. So I think that's what's coming your way. But honestly, that now I sort of wrapped them. It's either going to be the Blade Guard or the Eradicators. I think it's the Eradicators. Okay, so 2 Incursor squads and then Intercessor squad. We then have the nice big Blade Guard Veterans with the Judicar. I guess that makes sense. Blade Guard Veterans in the middle of the map with the Judicar to potentially make something fight last, hold the middle, can be quite strong. We have the Sanguinary Ancient as well, which seems like maybe a stretch, because we're spending a lot of points in characters at this point, and we know the Judicar and the Sanguinary Ancient both aren't very survivable. Yeah, I sent them on Tuesday. If you ping me after the stream, I think I actually have tracking numbers for them. If you really want the tracking number, you were the person in Germany, right? Oh, maybe I don't have a tracking number. I just have a receipt here. No. But yeah, they did get sent out on the 9th, so I would hope they will be with you guys this week anyway. I never run wings on the Jump Pack Librarian. Oh, you never thought to run wings? Yeah, some people run wings on the Jump Pack Librarian just because it gives you so much mobility, right? And then I think the other thing you need to remember is that you can advance and cast psychic powers, right? You don't have to. Normally, advance stops you charging. It doesn't, and it doesn't stop you casting psychic powers. So, yeah, I guess that gives you a huge amount of mobility that you could use there. So, Sanguinary Guard wise, then we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 swords, mainly swords and axes, and then 2 5-man, mainly swords and axes, and then attack bites with multi-meltas. Oh, nice to see those attack bites sneaking in with the multi-meltas. Basically 30 points more expensive than those eradicators, but a lot more mobile. No penalty to moving and shooting, and they do have that. They do have that synergy with Sanguinary Ancient as well to get some of them back on the table if they get killed. Okay, let me think about this for a minute then. So it's basically like 2, 4, 6. So it's 19 Sanguinary Guard, 6 attack bikes, the Sanguinary Ancient, the Blade Guard, the Chaplain buffing them, the Librarian, the Priest, the Intercessors, and then holding the middle with the Blade Guards. Alright, so it's a pretty interesting list, and it's I'd say it's pretty strong. I don't know if I like 19 Sanguinary Guard though, and nothing else, right? No Death Company, no Vanguard Veterans. I think the strongest lists are including both. I think Vanguard Veterans are a really interesting place, right? We compared 5 Vanguard Veterans against 5 Death Company like a few weeks ago, and the Vanguard Veterans are like 70 to 80% more survivable than the Death Company, right? They obviously have 1 better on the regular save, and then they have that 4+ invulnerable save. And it does mean if you get the Vanguard Veterans into cover, you're essentially on a 1-up save, which is obviously very good against any sort of small arms fire, right? So Vanguard Veterans, to me, like, I feel like straight away, like, I would just switch out 1 squad of these guys for Vanguard Veterans. And I think it would be all Lightning Claws, because Lightning Claws are going to help a lot against problematic units that we compared things to, like Deathwing Knights or Terminators are going to be a big issue now. For the Sanguinary Guard, because they only wound on unmodified rolls of 4+, whereas obviously the Vanguard Veterans get to re-roll all their wounds with Lightning Claws. So basically, Vanguard Veterans against Deathwing are going to be better than Sanguinary Guard. Against Dreadnoughts, they're going to be better. Again, because the Sanguinary Guard are going to lose half their damage. Against Death Guard, again, they're probably going to be better because the Sanguinary Guard again are going to lose half their damage. So Sanguinary Guard are a great unit, don't get me wrong, but I think we need to be a bit more versatile. Like if you're gonna play against like a few different types of armies, I play a few armies that run a lot of Dreadnoughts. Like the Custodes list that I'm looking at tomorrow, I think is running 5 or 6 Dreadnoughts maybe. I've played against an Iron Hands player who runs 2 Contemptors, 2 Leviathans, a Deredeo again, so like half the list is Dreadnoughts. So if half the list is going to be -1 damage, your Sanguinary Guard are going to lose, like before you've even put them on the tabletop, they've lost 25% of their potency. I'm really liking the inclusion of the Ancient with Wrath of Baal. I think if you're going to run so many Sanguinary Guard, the Wrath of Baal helps to make sure you get value by rocketing them forward. Yeah, I mean, that is one thing to say about the Ancient. This list does have Veil of Time, so it does have the ability to get like a reroll charge. It actually has 2 ways to get reroll charge, I guess, because of Icon of the Angel and Veil of Time. So I mean, you don't necessarily need the Whirlwind so much, but Yeah, I mean, I just think the Sangre Ancient is a little bit overcosted at the moment, but I do understand that some people enjoy the mobility that he brings. But I think this would be better with one squad of Vanguard Veterans. I do like the attack bikes a lot. I do like the Judicar and the Blade Guard to hold the middle of the board, and I do like the troop choices. And for the most part, again, I like the Librarian. I like the Sangre Priest. Again, the Chaplain. The Chaplain comes in at 130 points. The Primaris Chaplain on a bike comes in 10 points more expensive. And again, for me, it's the stat line that's important here. Whereas, like, a regular Chaplain, and like I say a lot, like, 9th edition is about holding objectives and having units alive at the end of the game to score points and performing actions and stuff like that, right? A Primaris Chaplain on a bike has toughness 5 and 7 wounds. And a regular Chaplain over here has toughness 4 and 4 wounds. So for 10 points more, you're getting plus 1 wound, plus 1 toughness and plus 3 wounds. To me, that's madness. You know, normally we talk about 10 points equates to 1 more wound in a lot of units, right? Or about that, you know, like if we compare 2 units together and 1 unit has 1 more wound, it usually comes in around 10 points. So for the 10 points with these guys, you're literally getting 1 more toughness and 3 more wounds. So you're basically over doubling his survivability, the Primaris Chaplain on a bike. Speaking of Primaris Chaplain on a bike, hey, look, here's one that I was working on stream last night. Like, these guys are absolute badasses. I'm going to be fielding one tomorrow. They can do a ton of damage, and I mean, especially, like, I'm playing Death Guard tomorrow, so, like, if you think about the regular Chaplain, against the Death Guard, he's going to be toughness 3, 4 wounds. I mean, that does not sound survivable at all. At least my Primaris Chaplain on a bike, he's still going to be toughness 4, but he's going to have 7 wounds. I mean, toughness 4, 7 wounds sounds a lot better than toughness 3, 4 wounds, right? Again, it comes down to, like, obviously being on a bike, breachable terrain can be an issue, but I mean, you just need to be smart and try and work around it. And yeah, I mean, the Primaris Chaplain on a bike is gorgeous. The one that I'm making there is actually a conversion from an Indomitus Chaplain and an Outrider, because, like I said, I don't really do Outriders. But yeah, just have a think about that. Like, against the Death Guard, that -1 toughness aura is going to be a real problem for us, because everything that we have does damage in melee, right? So we're going to have to be in melee. We're going to have to accept that -1 toughness. So if you're going to spend 130 points on a character with toughness 3, he's going to get wounded, like, by everything. It's going to be horrific. Yeah, I mean, maybe he could drop in and get his charge off with Icon of the Angel and do some decent work, but after that, like, what's his chance of surviving? I guess that would be my question, right? Cool. Drop the Ancient for the Whirlwind is the 2021 catchphrase. Maybe. Darkoman says, just bought 2 dreads on eBay for a tenner each, never owned any, so looking forward to making them my own. Nice, man. Always like people when they get their first models or their first of a certain unit. It's always a fun experience. Doesn't being on a bike give him +1 toughness? Anyway, yeah, I mean, I guess you get the +1 toughness, but the +3 wounds is it's a big deal for just 10 points. You don't often get that many extra wounds for 10 points. You'd usually expect to get 1. I think it would be cool if everyone sent a photo of their army along with their list. Yeah, maybe. If people have photos, I'll send the list that I'm making up. Like, I was planning on sending a photo of the list that I'm doing tomorrow, later tonight. So, because I have to unpack everything, right, to pack it up to go to the battle. So I'll send a photo of my list later so you guys can see that as well. Okay, so it's a solid enough list. I don't think it's going to be super competitive, but at the same time, like, I don't really dislike too much about it. Maybe we just swap out a few Sangre Guard for some Vanguard Veterans. The troop choices are generally fine. I mean, 1 Intercessor squad is okay with Incursors. Again, maybe if the Intercessor squad are holding their backfield by themselves, it's a little bit risky. Like, Infiltrators would be better, but I suppose it just depends, and I play Black Tempers, but I was wondering how you set up your Primaris Chaplain on the bike. I don't have Battlescribe open right now, but off the top of my head, my Primaris Chaplain on the bike is the Wise Orator. He has... Oh, do you know what? I'll just open Battlescribe. Just give me a second. Because my brain's a little bit fuzzy on that list. I went round and round and round and round in circles on this list because I haven't been able to play a game in a while, obviously. So yeah, let me just pull up Battlescribe and I'll tell you. Oh, come on! I'm gonna just make it a little bit smaller. Oh wait, you can't make it smaller while it's loading. Okay. Surely it shouldn't take that long to load. Here we go. My Primaris Chaplain on a bike is set up with the Master of Sanctity, the Litany of Faith, so I can get prevent against mortal wounds, Mantra of Strength to give him the additional +1 strength, +1 damage, the Benediction of Fury, so basically his weapon is now Strength 7, -2, 4 damage, with 6s doing mortal wounds, and then he also has... the Wise Orator, so two litanies go off. So yeah, I mean you could take one step further and make him your warlord, but in this list I actually have my warlord as a chapter master. So yeah, I still think he's a generally great character. Yeah, so maybe if this was me, I'd try and get 10 points and play this guy as a chaplain on a bike. And I mean, it seems. Does the 2 inches from Wrath of Baal, that's jump pack units only, right? Now I have to check this because I never run Wrath of Baal. I just generally don't overly. Wrath of Baal, Blood Angels jump pack. Okay, so if you run your Blood Angels jump pack units with Wrath of Baal, then you've got a biker, because the biker moves 14 inches, right? Anyway, so your jump pack units now move 14 inches. So the biker should be able to keep up enough, I would have thought, to join any fights that these guys are going to join. Overall, cool. Imagine if you need a photo of a painted list to make your list here. The queue would go down like the Titanic. Do you know what I've been painting like there's no tomorrow to make sure that I do not have a single unfielded unit or unpainted unit in the list that I'm playing, because last time I put a list up, someone was like, you know, in my YouTube videos, normally I don't get that many negative comments, but someone put like a negative comment up that was like, you shouldn't be playing with grey models or something like that. And I was like, dude, do you know how slow I am at painting? Plus I have a day job. Plus I have a YouTube channel to make videos for. Plus I have a baby that's like 15 months old. It's like, yeah, I mean, I'll just paint everything, no problem, you know? So I've used this lockdown to make sure that when you guys see the list tomorrow, I'll send you a photo of it tonight as well in like the Discord group. There's no unpainted model. I mean, there's no finished. There's some of the models aren't finished, but at least they have enough paint on them, so you should be able to see them, right? Okay, so let's score up Ads' list, and we start with I think it's 8 for OBSEC. He did have Rights of War here, so maybe, do you know what? It's 8/5, 2 full boss units, another unit, and then the ability to do Rights of War. How does this list deal with infantry? I mean, I guess 19 Angelus bolt guns. I guess 20 if you take the Sangre Ancient as well will cut down a lot of chaff units. Bar that, we don't have much though. You don't want to be shooting... Well, I guess the bikes have their twin bolt guns. So you have a bit of anti-infantry fire. Let's say like an 8. How do we do against armour? Well, I mean, we've got 12 multi-melta shots per turn, assuming these guys live. They can also be revived. We have a ton of Sangre Guard swords and axes. And we do have that null zone ability as well on a super mobile Librarian if we did take the wings on top of the jump pack. The Chaplain I have a question mark on. We've already talked on that. I would possibly have liked to see the Benediction of Fury. Maybe that gives more value than Icon of the Angel here. But I mean, like Icon of the Angel with Wrath of Baal, you're very much just trying to get forward as quickly as possible and get like a ton of those turn 2 charges off. So I think it's okay. And then the Blade Guard and that to hold in the middle. And the Blade Guard do a good amount of armor killing as well. So I think this is like a 9, maybe even a 9.5 in the fact that we have like 12 multi-meltas. So we have a lot of weapons that can do more than 2 damage. So up against those problematic -1 damage targets, we can kind of burst through that. Although I've painted about 4k points over the pandemic, but it's still not finished. Yeah, I know the pain of painting a list and then suddenly changing stuff. I would use the regular Ancient with the jump pack, but he's Legends now. Yeah, unfortunately. And also, do you know what? Our Ancient last edition was actually really good. I loved the Standard of Sacrifice. I thought it was a really strong and interesting power. So, how about mobility? Well, mobility, I guess, is great. We have the Judicar and the Blade Guard who aren't really mobile, and we have 1 Intercessor squad. But I think overall, the mobility of everything else is pretty top. So, I think it's maybe like a 9. And then Specialization. Maybe we're too specialized in the Sanguinary Guard here. We mentioned that. Like maybe there's just too much emphasis on these 2 damage weapons. And I mean, I'm not going to score down the list because some people like jump pack chaplains. I'm just highlighting it as maybe for 10 points it's much better to have those 3 additional wounds and the 1 additional toughness from the Primaris Chaplain on the bike, and he's a gorgeous model, right? The only reason I didn't buy him was I kind of think he's kind of pricey at like $29 for a single model. I know in America he's probably like $45. I was actually kind of thinking to myself, when are we going to hit the point where it's like $50 for a single character? But I mean, $29 for a single character, and the fact that I had a bunch of Indomitus Spears, I just made a conversion. But I mean, if you have Indomitus Spears and the Chaplain from the Indomitus, you can do that as well, and do it a lot cheaper. So I would definitely consider that. So I think in terms of specialization, I don't think there's anything really out of place here. Maybe it's like an 8. So I mean, that does actually give this list probably the highest score today. I'm trying to think if it feels like it's the highest scoring list, because sometimes the lists are subjective a little bit. Let me go back and look at Alex. He was first today real quick. What did Alex have again? Oh yeah, he had the Assault Intercessors. Oh, he had no fight first, no fight last. Yeah, so maybe this list just comes in first because he does have the Null Zone, he does have that Veil of Time, he does have like a strong middle and a ton of multi-meltas to back it up, and then yeah, I mean the main thing is just maybe a little bit more versatility in like 1 character and 1 squad. So I think a 43 is actually a pretty solid score for ads, and I'm a slow painter as well. It took me 4 weeks to paint my last Dreadnought. I mean, it's fine to be slow. I mean, I'd rather be slow and have the models look nice, right, than rushed and looked a bit crap. But yeah, I mean, like, this is a hobby that people stick at for a long period of time. So based on that, like, there's no problem with being a slow painter. It just makes it difficult sometimes when you're always changing your army list, or you're always trying to chase the meta, or you're always trying to make something really strong, and you're like, oh, I wish that I just had this one thing painted, and then you change, and then you change, and then you change, and it just goes and goes and goes, I guess. So cool. So that was the ads' list, and gotta agree, I find it hard to lay down near 30 quid for one model, but you look so damn good. Yeah, I mean, if you want to know, I actually filmed how I converted this one, like the whole thing. I just hadn't quite finished putting the video together, but I mean, it was kind of simple to make one from an Outrider. So I mean, the other option, I guess, you could buy an Outrider on eBay, and if you've got a spare Chaplain, you could do something like with that one, with that, cool. But yeah, I mean, like, at what point do the models, I think they're going to start pricing people out of the hobby, right? When you talk like a single character at £33 or £30, it's starting to get a bit much, I think. Okay, so number 5 is Ollie. I think that's how you say it. Nice. Cool. Okay, so here's my new list of Lamenters. Wow. Okay, so this is the first time that we've had a Lamenters list shared, and I need to check like where. I actually don't know where. Maybe someone can help me that knows about Lamenters. Do they actually have their own chapter tactic, or do they just pick, like, because they're a successor chapter, right? Here we go. Lamenters. If you have a Blood Angel successor chapter, then for the purpose of using Blood Angel attachment rules, yeah. Warlord traits, chapter relics, data sheets. All Blood Angel successor chapters. You can find out more information on successor chapters and how to determine your chapter is a successor in Codex Space Marines. So, do they just pick their traits from the Space Marine Codex, essentially? Like, there's no defined traits for Lamenters, right? They don't custom successor or chapter rules. Yeah, so does that mean they just pick the ones from the book? Or they never helped us in battle? Yeah, they weren't there. They don't have a chapter tactic of their own, but they have a few named characters, or just one. Yeah, they can pick their chapter traits, though, right? I'm looking at... Yeah, like this, successor chapter traits, page 96 in the main rulebook. Like, I think they just get to pick 2 of these. If you've chosen a chapter that doesn't have an associated chapter tactics on page 94, you must instead create a chapter by selecting from the list here. Unless otherwise stated, your chapter has 2 successor tactics. Yeah, so if he didn't tell me his successor traits, then that makes this list really difficult to score. I mean, I guess we just assume that they're Blood Angel traits. Let's just assume he has the +1 red thirst rule, etc. Because otherwise, I don't know how I would know exactly. Yeah, it's just the Blood Angels and Flesh Tearers that have specific rules, right? Okay, so Lamenters anyway, here we go. And we start with a captain on a bike, and we have a mastercrafted bolt gun in the Teeth of Terra. We then have a chaplain who has the Exhortation of Rage, Canticle of Hate, Bolt Pistol, Master of Sanctity, Jump Pack, Litany of Hate, Wiserator. I never run this one. 1 second, so I don't remember. Oh, I need to flip the screen back as well. Okay, hold on, sorry. Okay, so it's a strange choice to pick Exhortation of Rage, because that's the one that gives you +1 to wound in close combat. So I feel like he's picked some chapter tactics, but he should have probably told me what they were. Let's pick him the best ones for his list. Okay, yeah, let's do that. That would be quite interesting, actually. Yeah, let's pick him the best ones for his list. I like that idea. So he's taken... His chaplain has +1 to hit in melee range. Or, sorry, +1 to wound. So I guess he wouldn't... So I guess he's assuming that he doesn't have the Blood Angels trait, because otherwise that would be a wasted litany, right? Cool. All right, so let's debate this at the end of the list. What's going to be best for him? And he has a Sanguinary Priest, obviously. No, if anyone ever runs a different Sanguinary Priest, then I'll mention it. But for the most part, it's just always the same Sanguinary Priest. Incursors, Intercessors, and Tactical Squads. I hate Tactical Marines. I'm sorry, but I just feel like they haven't been updated. One attack is just tragic, and do you know what? Regular bolters are kind of tragic as well. Otherwise, Whirlwind of Rage and Hungry for Battle would be the best alternatives for successor chapter tactics. So Whirlwind of Rage is each time a model with this tactic makes a melee attack, if that model's unit made a charge move, was charged or performed a heroic intervention, unmodified 6, scored 1 additional hit. So Whirlwind of Rage F could be good for good. Could be good for sure, sorry. And Hungry for Battle is... add 1 to the advance roll and charge. Okay, so basically that's the Flesh Tearers rules at that point. But yeah, so regular Tactical Squad, I really don't like it. I don't know what it brings for 90 points. Like, I think you'd be far better off spending like 10 more points sorting that out. And I mean, you've got 10-man Intercessor squad here, so drop some of the, like, why 10-man Intercessor squad? I don't know. I don't see competitive players running 10-man Intercessor squads. I don't think there's a huge amount of value in that. Maybe if you're running auto bolt rifles, there might be some value in it, but I don't particularly think it's. I don't think it's worth it. 5-man Blade Guard squad, fine for holding in the middle of the board. Redemptor Dreadnought to sort of be there around the middle as well. That's absolutely fine. The Sanguinary Guard, and it is 8 with swords. That's absolutely fine as well. Terminator squad, and it's a shooting Terminator squad. So all Stormbolters, we got like a couple with power fists, couple with chain fists, and the Terminator Sergeant will have a power sword. I kind of like the Terminator, the default Terminator squad. They're a bit stronger as well now with their 2+ save, so you can't really go wrong with Terminators. They do lack mobility, but I mean, what they lack in mobility, they make up with an invulnerable save and additional wound. So they're good. Small Vanguard Veterans squad, all jump packs, Storm Shields, Lightning Claws, and then the Sergeant has the Power Fist and the Storm Shield. And I actually give my Sergeant the Infernal Pistol and the Relic Blade. I think that's probably about the exact same amount of points, because a Power Fist is 8 and a Storm Shield is 4, so that's 12. The Relic Blade, okay, so it's like 3 more points, I guess, if you take the Relic Blade and the Infernal Pistol. But I like having the Infernal Pistol there for like a random pop shot. Or you could take the Infernal Pistol and keep the Lightning Claw. That may be an option as well. So I guess there's that. Then we have these Attack Bite Multi-Meltas. And then we have an Impulsor, I guess. Probably this would be for the Blade Guard. But I'm surprised. I think if you're going to run the Impulsor, you run it with the Shield Dome. I mean, the Sky Talon on it is like it's basically like a missile launcher, right? Like, I've never run it on the Impulsor. I always have run the Impulsor like naked with a Shield Dome. The Sky Talon is heavy 8. Oh, it's 4. So basically the Sky Talon array is it's basically like 8 bolt carbine shots. So it's just like strength 4 -1 damage. I was thinking I thought that it could come with a missile launcher. Oh yeah, that's the Bellatict missile array. I think if you're going to run something on the Impulsor, you run the missile launcher. I don't think Stubbers, Stormbolters, or like even the Sky Talon array are probably worth the cost, right? The amount of times you fire Stormbolter and you maybe get 1 wound. The amount of times you fire those Stubbers on the Repulsors and you maybe take off 1 wound. I think this is the exact same thing, right? You'll shoot it, you'll hit on a 3+. It's heavy 8, so you maybe get like 5 hits. You'll maybe wound the enemies on like 3s or 4s. So you got your 5 hits. You're maybe going to end up making them make a couple of saves at -1. So maybe you take 1 wound. So it's just like, to me, it's. I wouldn't spend the points on it. I might spend the points on the missile array. How much do you pay for that Sky Talon array? Let me check. Impulsor. Sky Talon array is 10 points. Yeah, and a heavy stubber is 5 points. I mean, to me that's 15 points wasted. I'd either put the Shield Dome on, which is exactly 15 points, or I'd put the missile launcher on, because the missile launcher actually fires crack missiles, and I think it said it was heavy 2. So you pay 5 more points and you get heavy 2 crack missile. Sorry, it's only heavy 1. Okay, so it's not that great either. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, at least with a crack missile, occasionally if you hit and wound, you can do d6 damage. Whereas, like, paying 15 points for, like, 10 strength 4 hits it's not really going to do much. Maybe it kills a few infantry, but yeah, I mean, it just feels like a bit of a waste in my opinion. Between Assault Terminators, Thunderhammer, and Storm Shield, regular Terminators, and Blade Guard Veterans, which one do people prefer and why? Just curious. So I'm running Blade Guard, and I think there's one reason behind that, and I think it's that the 5-man squad can be transhuman for 1 CP. I do like Thunderhammer, Storm Shield Terminators a lot. I do like Stormbolter, Chain Fist, Power Sword Terminators, Power Fist Terminators a lot as well. Like, I have a lot of those models. I think they're gorgeous models. I really like how they look, but in my list right now, it's Bladeguard Veterans, and I think it is just. It was one of the guys actually from the chat. You'll see him. He's not here. Oh, he's there. Tony. Pretty sure it was Tony that basically said, Bladeguard Veterans are the best purely because if you take them in squads of 5, you get that 1 CP transhuman, and that just makes them 50% more survivable for the entire phase essentially. And Bladeguard Veterans are already strong, with their 2+, 4+ saves. And then I guess again you can bring them back to life with Sanguinary Priest, or you can heal them and bring them back to life. So, thanks for tuning in, Alex. Really, I hope I helped you a little bit with your list. Cool. Okay, so this is the list. So the Impulsors, the Tat Bikes, the Vanguard Veterans, Terminator Squad, Sanguinary Guard, Redemptor Dreadnought, 5 Blade Guards for holding the middle, Tactical Intercessor and Cursors, and then Captain on a bike, Chaplain on a bike. Sorry, just Chaplain with the jump pack and the Sanguinary Priest. And I think I would again get some heroes of the chapter going on here. I would get this Captain on the bike with the hero of the chapter. If he's got the Teeth of Terra, Imperium Sword again works really well with Teeth of Terra. Giving him, like +1 strength. So if you do run into toughness 5 infantry, he's just melting them, and also an additional attack. And Gift of Foresight is an interesting one as well. And I maybe would even make, like, if this was me and this was my list, I would give the Sanguinary Priest the hero of the chapter. I would give the Warlord to this Chaplain probably, and then use Angel's Exemplar on the Chaplain to give him a second Warlord trait, right? We could give him like Gift of Foresight, we could give him Artisan of War, and we could buff up this Chaplain in terms of survivability and damage output as well. Transhuman nullifies the -1 toughness from Death Guard, I think. Yeah, it does. It's unmodified 1, 2s, 3s, so in some ways it's sad that Vanilla Marines didn't get any sort of way to just to reduce damage, right? Like if you think about it, like in the last edition, Sanguinary Guard had like a stratagem, I believe, in close combat that like made them more survivable. I forget what it was now, but they had that, and the only thing that we get that can buff up the survivability of the old Marines is the refusal to die in the Death Company. But I actually kind of think the Death Company's Feel No Pain should be a 5+ anyway, and then maybe like refusal to die making it 4+, because I don't think the Death Company are in a good position right now. Like when we compared them against the Vanguard Veterans did like 10% less damage, but were 70% more survivable. And like that 70% more survivable in an edition where you get so many points for being on objectives, for doing actions, like it's really hard to pick Death Company if you know this other unit. And also Death Company can't do actions, right? So like if you drop in the Death Company into the opponent's backfield and kill them on their backfield objective, if it was Vanguard Veterans, then you can just raise a banner, for example. If it's Death Company, you can't do anything, So it's like the Death Company aren't strong enough for the points you pay for them. Right now, maybe if you're running lots of Death Company with Thunderhammers, and you have a way to buff them with Assault Doctrine and like the Blood Chalice and Chapter Master rerolls, then sure, they're definitely worth it, right? But if you're only going to run a 5-man and they're going to be like a solo squad that drop in to do harassment, then I think the Vanguard Veterans are in just a much better place. I'm going to be honest, I don't think there's a time where you don't spend the CP on upgrading characters. Blood Angels kind of love heroing hammering with 9th. Excessive yeah, you're absolutely right. Themos, I guess I'll call you. Like my list, I think I'm starting the game with 5 or 6 CP. Do you know what? I've got Battlescribe open, it'll tell me. This detachment's -4 CP, and the other detachment is so I'm starting my list with 6 CP, and I think that's plenty. I don't think that you need a ton of CP in 9th edition as Blood Angels. Like essentially starting the game with 6 CP gives you 11 throughout the game. I think that's absolutely fine. I think even maybe as little as 9 is fine, 9 or 10 throughout the game. And then, yeah, I buff all my characters. Every character in my list is buffed. My Librarian, I guess, has been given the Tomb of Malkador. My Priest has been, my Chaplain, has been given the Master of Sanctity and the Wise Orator. My Captain on the Bike has been given Adamantium Mantle and Angel's Artifice. I haven't actually saved this. It wasn't Mastercraft. I don't have a Mastercrafted weapon in here. Gift of Foresight was the other thing. I think Mastercrafted weapon is just incorrectly still ticked. It's supposed to be Adamantium Mantle that I have. Hopefully I didn't share the wrong list. I'll have to check that. And then, like, obviously my priest has upgraded to the Selfless Healer, so it's like every character I have has an upgrade of a warlord trait or a relic, and I think you can do that. And obviously my warlord has the 2 upgrades, right? Like, I've put the Angel's Artifice on him to get the Adamantium Mantle as well. So my warlord's on a 2-up save, a 4-up invulnerable save, a 5-up Field of Pain, and he can reroll 1 save every turn, right? It's huge, right? Thanks a lot, Doctor. I appreciate that. So this list could be improved with some more stratagems. Sorry, some more relics, some more heroes of the chapter, and I guess everything else seems pretty good except maybe the tactical squad. I mean, if we could swap out the tactical squad for something useful, and then maybe if you're watching this, Ollie, watch the last list, because we talked a lot about how good the Primaris Chaplain on a bike is compared to this Chaplain for the points cost, right? He's like way better, but I guess it depends on how much you need to deep strike and stuff like this, or how important your Canticle of Hate coming in from deep strike is to your list, because if that's super important, then that's where we are. Well, I guess the question then is, was there any warlord traits that was there any successor chapter tactics that we thought would be better than the Blood Angels ones, if this is a successor? And I feel like this is a pretty close combat list. Like, this is a pretty standard Blood Angels close combat list. But he did take Exorant of Rage on the Chaplain, so maybe he has... Like, maybe he's dropped the Red Thirst and he's taken something like Stalwart, so unmodified rolls of 1s or 2s, like, always fail. I actually think that's a really good chapter tactic. Stalwart and something else. Like, maybe he's taken Stalwart and, like, Whirlwind of Rage, or maybe Stalwart and Hungry of Battle, so he still has that +1 to advanced rolls. That might be really interesting as well. Okay, I gotta go later, guys. See you, Mark. Thanks for tuning in. What are these unique traits? This is a Lamenter's list, Mark. So, because it's a Lamenter's list, he doesn't necessarily have the Blood Angels chapter tactics. So we were looking at the chapter tactics on this from the Space Marine Codex on page 96. Just to see if there was one that he could have picked that maybe make the list a little bit stronger. Can a Chaplain deep strike in and use litanies? Only if you pay the CP for the stratagem that uses the litany. There's a stratagem called, I think it's Commanding Oratory, and it costs 2 CP, and use the stratagem at the start of any of your phases other than your command phase. Select one Adeptus Astartes Chaplain from your army that has not recited a litany this turn. That model can recite one litany that has not already been recited by a friendly model this turn. This litany is automatically inspiring, and takes effect. So basically, like, they can arrive from deep strike, then you can pay this 2 CP. It's 1 CP if your Chaplain's the Wise Orator, it reduces the cost by 1, and then your litany can go off. But you only have 1 litany go off that way, right? Like, you can't do more than 1. Okay. So let's give the list a score, and then I guess if anyone has any idea about the chapter ones, we can think about that. But I think Obsec, like, he has 3 troops, but we only have 1 Phobos, and we have no Rights of War or anything like that in this list. So I guess we're looking at like an 8. How are we going to do against chaff units? Well, we do have Terminators with Storm Bolters, we do have Sanguinary Guard with Angelus Bolters, we have a Redemptor Dreadnought which has the Rocket Pods and the Onslaught Cannon. I guess we have like Tactical Marine Bolters, but like I really just don't rate them. We do have this big Intercessor squad, and then we have Attack Bite Bolters as well. So I mean, we've got a decent amount of infantry clearing, but I mean, I feel like it's nothing special. So we'll go for 8. how are we going to do against the big armor threats? Well, we've got those attack bikes. I guess do you know what we've got all those rubbish bolters that we talked about on the impulsor that I said would kill nobody. So do you know what, we're just going to still say they'll kill nobody, and we're just going to stay on an 8. We have Vanguard Veterans, we have Terminators with like Chain Fist and Power Fist, we have Sanguinary Guard with swords, we have the Redemptor's Claw, we have Vanguard Veterans, we have a Captain with the Teeth of Terra. I think we talked about that earlier in the stream, how it could be better if it was Hammer of Val. So maybe like for killing higher stuff, again, it's maybe like as an 8-5, like it's not super strong, but it's okay. Mobility wise, mobility is pretty good. I mean, the Terminators can deep strike in. We do have the Impulsor to move the Blade Guard about. I do think that the troops can be improved a lot here, right? Like if these 2 squads just became Phobos units, this list would be a lot better. It would probably free up some points as well to maybe add another Terminator or add another Vanguard Veteran. This list doesn't have any way to deal with, like, there's no fight last counter. So I guess we have to take that into account when we get to specialization. But for mobility, it's pretty good. I mean, we're looking at like an 8. And then, yeah, we have no way to counter Psychic. We have no way to counter any sort of like fight last. We aren't going to be hit too bad with the 2 damage issue, because we do have a few things, like 3 or 4 things that do more than 2 damage. But I do think there's a bit of weakness here in just like the Captain on the bike having no additional warlord trait, and we do have this Chaplain that I think is a lot better if he's the Primaris Chaplain on a bike as well. And I think that, I guess it depends on how core your Chaplain arriving and making those charges is. I don't like to put too much of my strategy on deep strike charges, right? Because deep strike charges always have a chance of failing. Hello, Darth Gamer. I'm not sure what part of communism is in the stream, but okay. I don't like to put too much weight on like charges coming in from deep strike to win the game, right? Because they always have a chance to fail. So I like to maybe like if I'm going to deep strike, it's going to be more for harassment than like the main amount of my force. So in doing that, but I mean, I can totally see why this could be valid. Drop those in, pop your Canticle of Hate off automatically, make the charge with Sanguinary Guard or the Terminators. So I mean, there is strategy to that, and if that is the strategy, then fine. But maybe this Captain could still be made better, or maybe the Priest could be made better. But yeah, I definitely think you could spend some points at the beginning of the game here, and you know, we talked a little bit earlier about giving. Like, could this Vanguard Veteran Sergeant, could he have a Relic Blade for 2 extra points, and could that be a Master-crafted Relic Blade? Yeah, I mean, it totally could be, right? You know what I just thought? That... yeah, no, that'd be fine. I missed something in the chat because there's a big argument about Sanguinius and Horus. Lore-wise, isn't it humorously easy to kill a lot of Lamenters? I mean, they are stalwart warriors, but not so hard to wound physically or emotionally. Alright, okay, so we're having a bit of a debate about Lamenters. This is the first Lamenter list we've ever done, so I mean, it's cool to get one, right? And then Specialization. I don't think it's too specialised. I think it misses the ability to fight last or fight first, and I think it could have a bit more punch on the characters. Like I think our the characters are some of your most expensive models, right? And then I guess I think it could do better with the troop choices. Like buying 1 box of Primaris Infiltrators here would make a lot of sense. You know, it would give him an Incursor squad, it would give him an Infiltrator squad, and I mean, I guess he already has Incursors, so he probably knows the strength of the Incursors. And if you do want to run a massive Intercessor squad, our auto bolt rifle is not just better for Blood Angels, because you can move up the board, you could advance, you can pop out like 3 shots from each auto bolt rifle, that gives you 30 shots around. I think you can actually use a stratagem to shoot bolt rifles twice, so you could get 60 shots around from them. Am I bullshitting her? I think there is a stratagem that lets you shoot them twice. Or maybe it was they can perform an action and shoot. No. Yeah, rapid fire, 2 CP. Use a stratagem at the end of your shooting phase. Select one intercessor squad or veteran intercessor squad until the end of the shoot. Sorry. That unit can shoot again. Yeah, so for 2 CP, if you had auto bolt rifles, you could shoot 60 shots out of this squad. So I mean, and that sounds strong, like really strong for a couple of CP, but like I don't like he's not picked auto bolt rifles. He's just picked regular bolt rifles, which I guess is fine for the extra range. But like to me, the strength of the autos is that you move forward, you advance, and then you pepper them with 60 shots. Right? If you have a chapter master on the board and you throw them rerolls, then you've got 60 shots hitting 75% of the time, even after they advance. So you're still going to get 45 hits. If they didn't advance, you're going to get even more hits, probably like 50. So 50 strength 4 hits, I mean, that sounds a lot better than all the other stuff we were talking about in the Impulsor and stuff like that, right? So, I like the Phobos Captain with Marksman to escort Malakim for a 4 damage sniper shot. There's a strat... Yes, thanks Alex, thanks for keeping me right. And don't forget you get to fire the grenade launcher also. I mean, you have to pay the points for the grenade launcher, right? Which I don't think he did. I know it's only 5 points, but I always think that the 5 points for the grenade launcher, like I'd probably rather spend the 5 points on an Infernal Pistol somewhere else. As far as boiling it down, why Perma-Transhuman doesn't make sense at all. GW have always struggled to accurately portray the Dark Angel's stubborn nature as it is done in the lore. Yeah, I mean, they've always struggled to portray Mephiston as a frigging god in the lore, right? But he's kind of average at best on the tabletop. And his sword is still D3 damage, which is just absolutely terrible. Like loads of other things got at least flat 2 damage, and Mephiston's sword is still D3. I mean, yeah, okay. So, and then finally, the specialization, I think it's a 7/5. So I think this list comes in at 40. So I think the winners of today's list submissions are basically ads and basically Adam, and I think both of those lists with small adjustments could be made quite a bit better, I guess, and move towards like sort of a more competitive feel. Okay, so yeah, I mean, pretty good, a good array of lists today. We had that Dreadnought list. We had a few big Sanguinary Guard lists. We always get a few big Sanguinary Guard lists, regardless if I tell people that I don't think lots of Sanguinary Guard are perfect. People always want to bring 20 plus Sanguinary Guard, and I do think it just makes you a little bit one-dimensional. Total of 60 auto bolt rifle shots with 2 or frag or crack after advancing, since the grenade launchers are also assault. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he paid for the grenade launchers in this, but I guess you've got that as well. Yeah, I mean, I think intercessors with auto rifles could make some sense, right? Because you can, like you said, you shoot the 60 shots, and then, I mean, intercessors are still decent in close combat, so you can charge with intercessors as well and do some wounds. Yeah, your list has the strangest graph that we have ever seen, actually, where it almost looks a bit like a love heart. An inverted love heart. That's how I feel about that list, Tom. It's nice to get fresh lists though, right? And like I said, 38 doesn't... These scores are so arbitrary, right? You could have a 45... You could have a list with 45 points on the score and it could do nothing, or you could have a list with 38 points on the score and it does loads. I was running that list with a 700 points of shooting, like the super heavy tank and the tech marine. If I scored that list... it would be something crazy weird, right? Because it's like all your eggs are in one basket in that 700 point tank, but if people don't manage to kill the 700 point tank and you just get to fire it every round of combat, you probably win the game because it alone can delete everything off the board, So it's like the points the points are just an estimate on how almost how up on the meta your list is, but it's not important to have a list that's super meta either. I'm interested in seeing some higher tier Blood Angels list. The meta is often referred to as our way of seeing games lists. So, I've actually started a new playlist over on the channel, Alex, and it is kind of newer, but if you go to the Blood Angels Commander channel, let me just boot it up, and you scroll down down here and look for my playlists, I've started this playlist called Competitive Army Lists, and there is only 3 videos in this. Like, I only started this a month ago, and I guess my plan going forward, I guess, is to add like a new list to this playlist, I guess, because it's a playlist of videos, sort of like every couple of weeks probably, or every 3 weeks. Like, I'll what happens is, like, if a Blood Angels player wins a tournament, then I'll go and find the list and I'll take it and I'll break it down and I'll make a video, and basically I'll just do what we're doing here, like on the live show, right? But it will be with competitive lists, and I'll make some slides. I guess when I mouse over it, you can see that it's me talking and there's some slides, and I'll rate these lists the same. So at the end of the video, I give them scores out of 50, same as all the other lists. And my plan over the next year or so, or however long we're doing this channel, I guess forever, because I plan on doing this channel for this foreseeable future, I'll be adding lists that I think are quite competitive, but I'm also going to be adding either my lists or lists that I highlight from this show, right? So if there's a list in this show, I think the highest list we've ever had in this show scored 45 points, which is really good, or maybe it was 46. And I think one of these lists here, I think it might be the tournament winning list, scored like 46.5 out of 50. So if we ever get any lists on the live show that like score consistently over 45, maybe we take them out and break them down into their own video, or I actually want to share my new army list, right? Like, I haven't played my new army list much yet, obviously because we've been in lockdown, but we are playing our list for the first time in like 3 months tomorrow, and I want to build a really strong army list as well, and I'd like to take it to a tournament. So at some point, once I know it's a solid list, and it's like I have another list that I just won 8 games in a row with, but it's not what I would call a competitive list. It's a niche pick list, and like I said, it had a 700 point tank in it, but I did win 8 games in a row. But maybe that goes in another playlist for a more fun. But this competitive army playlist, I plan on updating it sort of every few weeks with a new list based on what's doing well. Do you save all the lists you reviewed? Yeah, I mean, they're all in that tab. Like this is a document of tabs, so like I have all the lists that I reviewed, but I guess the thing is the meta is always changing, right? So I think it's more a going forward list. Like if someone submits me a list going forward, and your list is going to be the top scoring. When are we doing your list then? Is it literally next week? Oh, it's 2 weeks away. Okay, so Mark is gonna have the top scoring list in 2 weeks' time, and then that'll appear on this competitive playlist if it is the top scoring list. And if it's not, then probably what we'll do is we'll find the top scoring list over the last few weeks and we'll do a video on it. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but you have actually linked me another tournament placing list. So it was another tournament and the Blood Angels list placed 3rd or something. This is a few weeks back now. So I need to get my hands on that list again, Mark, and I'll make a video. I wanted to do the Smash Captain and the Sangori Guard video recently because people were asking about them. And then I did a battle report a few weeks back, and the battle reports honestly take me like 10 hours to make. They're crazy how long they take, because you have to go through hours of footage and like break it down turn by turn to basically create like an hour long video for a 5-hour battle. So yeah, they take a long time to make. So but yeah, my plan was to like increase this competitive army list playlist over time. And you think the Dreadnought list? I mean, maybe we need to have maybe I need a playlist here called Fun Army Lists, and I could put your Dreadnought list in it, and I could put in my super heavy tank list. Yeah, maybe we need a fun playlist, or maybe fun is the wrong word, but yeah, something else. Maybe we need a playlist for like fun army lists as well. Cool. So yeah, thanks very much for tuning in, guys. It's always nice to see so many people in the live chat, and have so many people around to talk to. If you haven't already joined us in Discord and Facebook, you can do that in the links under the video. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, then please do that as well, because I subscriptions are great, I guess. Let me see, Reziel. I can probably find your last list using this and see what score you got. You got 45.5. Okay, so your list was actually right up there. Interesting. You might have had one of the highest then. I don't know if anyone got over 45 or 46 on the live stream. Yeah, so I would have I'll have a copy of your list, because I do keep all the lists. Reziel. Okay, so if I don't have another list, then maybe we'll go back and look at yours and see if it could. I would love a casual commander list series. Okay, maybe we can do that as well. Yeah, I mean, I can only make so many videos, but yeah, I do actually want to make a video about the super heavy tank, because it was fun and it did win 8 games in a row. I really think it can go to 10 games in a row. Maybe before this edition ends, we'll take it to 10 games in a row. And do you know what? I'll surprise one of my friends sometime, because anytime I take that super heavy tank out of the list, anytime I take it out of my box, the box that you carry to your Warhammer games, they're like, "Oh, you're really taking the super heavy tank?" I'm like, "Yep." So it's a fun tank. Thanks, Northern, and yeah, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in today. It's been great. So tomorrow we are going to be live from, I think, 9:30 a.m. So about 15 hours from now, we're going to be live for a long period tomorrow. Probably 10 hours we'll be live tomorrow, and we'll have Blood Angels v Death Guard, Blood Angels v Custodes, and then I think we'll just show the game Custodes v Death Guard. If we don't show it, let me figure it out. We might just show the game. It might be weird, because the channel is supposed to be a 100% Blood Angels channel, but maybe people will watch the other game as well. I guess we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I do want to generally keep all the content on this channel 100% Blood Angels. So yeah, we'll have that tomorrow, and yeah, I mean, have a great rest of the evening. I actually am going to be around tonight, I think, in the Discord, probably, possibly in one of the voice channels, because I'm going to be reading up on the 2 lists that I have to fight against, the Death Guard and the Custodes tomorrow, making sure that I don't miss anything. Obviously, I've not played Death Guard since they got their new codex, so I might be around in Discord later, in 3.5 hours, something like that, and I'll be going to be taking notes. I was actually thinking of making a video of 2 videos, right? So I'm going to play against Death Guard, and there's going to be a lot of tactics that we need to know about, and also there's also going to be after I've played them, I'll know tactics and strategies that didn't work as well. So I was actually thinking of making a video of versus Death Guard. So how should Blood Angels play against Death Guard? What do we need to watch out for? How should we be using our units? What objectives or secondaries are going to score nicely? So I was thinking of doing that after I've had these games, and as I get back to sort of a weekly game, because we are gonna bring the show on Monday back to sort of a weekly thing. So I'm gonna do that, and then hopefully I'll make videos so that I won't finish the video this week probably, but I'll start working on it. So I have all the sort of pain points or stratagems or tactics that the Death Guard can use that we need to watch out for, so that we can essentially get those victories. And I think videos like that might be really useful, right? So it's if I play Death Guard in my meta, and I do play Death Guard, I have a really competitive friend that plays Death Guard a lot. I play him, let's say, once or twice every month. Then I'll make a video on things you need to watch out for when you're playing Death Guard, from a Blood Angel standpoint. I know Auspec Tactics does videos like that, right? But I guess his videos are much more just generally telling you the rules, whereas my video would be hey, if you're a Blood Angels player, you categorically do not want to be doing this against Death Guard, because. So that's what I'm thinking I'm going to do in the future as well. So now that we're getting back to sort of live games, we'll be able to do that too. So yeah, have a great rest of your weekend, guys. Hopefully we'll catch some of you in the live chat tomorrow. If we don't answer all the questions in the live chat, though, it will be because we're playing in real time. But maybe during the Death Guard game, if they are playing the Death Guard versus Custodes, then I can take any questions that you might have in that during that time. So yeah, cool. Have a good weekend. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope to see you guys all soon. And yeah, just thanks to everybody for hanging out, all the regulars, and answering the questions in the chat. It's much appreciated. So, see you guys soon. By the blood are we made. Peace.